Ramaphosa has urged the private sector to take part in the African Continental Free Trade Area. The trade agreement aims to accelerate trade across the continent and strengthen its position in the global market. Speaking at the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, Ramaphosa says this partnership will allow for significant economic growth.
It is an engine of growth, and through it, we'd like the private sector to embrace it, to participate in it, because what it does, it gives the African continent an opportunity to integrate, and it gives business people the opportunity to see the 1.4 billion people market on our continent and a GDP of the entire continent adding up to $3.4 trillion.
Poland's government is closing the Russian consulate in the city of Krakow after blaming Moscow for a massive fire at a Warsaw shopping center last year. Prime Minister Donald Tusk said Poland knew for sure that the blaze was organized by Russian special services. Moscow has dismissed the allegation and vowed to respond to the consulate's closure. The BBC's Adam Easton has the details.
In a message posted on social media, Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski warned the Russian authorities, "We know what you're doing, we don't accept it, and we will draw consequences." Polish investigators have concluded that Russian secret services were behind the fire that burnt down the Warsaw Indoor Market in May last year. Mr. Sikorski said it was a miracle no one was killed in the Warsaw blaze. Poland has now decided to close 2 of Russia's 3 consulates in the country, in Poznan and Kraków.
Recapping the top story, the Gauteng provincial government has revealed that it underspent by 1.8 billion rand at the end of 2024-25 financial year. I am on Delambara for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
In sports this hour, Rivera bids farewell to Buccaneer faithfuls. Virat Kohli retires from Test cricket, and Osaka knocked out of Italian Open. More details at 3:30.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack, and what a crack! That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
Hey! He's what an introduction!
Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, Monday afternoon, and you think you can try and find somebody wearing a Kaiser Chiefs top at the SABC, and I walked around, and I must tell you, I'm quite amazed. I didn't see a single person of the 20-odd people that I walked past today wearing a Kaiser Chiefs top. Perhaps they've got their attention on other things now. Big questions about their coach and the Orlando Pirates coach. And in terms of where we are as a country, the issue of the refugees. They're finally on their way to the USA. It's a big issue. We will certainly talk about that for the major part of today's show, because it's a reflection of the National Pulse. So welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. I hope you had a wonderful weekend anyway. Right, how are you going to connect? You can call in when we go live, 086 000 2032. Then WhatsApps, text or voice note, 30 seconds max, please. And many people are listening, and that's great. 0614 104 107. And then you have the option to tweet out right away, okay? And when you do that, use the hashtag The National Pulse, and then tag SAFM Radio and tag me, Ashraf Garda. And I'll tell you what, as per usual, if you're a regular caller, call in and tell me where you are, because I need to get to know you better. But if you're also one of those who are calling in or listening in for the very first time here on the National Pulse, well, let me give you a shout out. So when you do come on, please tell me. Or you can even tweet it out too. I'd certainly check it out. Well, I'll tell you what, for the first time is definitely what we have. An unprecedented situation here where South Africans, they've been tagged the Amerikaners. These are Afrikaners, very specifically Afrikaners, who effectively have been granted refugee status to the USA, lock, stock and barrel, on the basis of them being persecuted in our country. So we'll talk about that with different aspects over the next 2 or 3 hours. Let's start, first things first, with the president. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has criticized the first 49 Amerikaners that have just left South Africa for the United States. He's saying they are leaving because they don't want to embrace the changes that are taking place in the country, which is consistent with the Constitution.
Own concern, because those people who are being enticed to go to the United States do not fit the definition of a refugee. A refugee is someone who has to leave their country out of fear of political persecution, religious persecution, or economic persecution. And
that's what the United States says they're undergoing in South Africa. That's why they've opened the door for them.
Yes, and they don't fit that bill. They don't fit that description. And I had a conversation with President Trump on the phone, and he said, what's happening down there? And I said, President, what you've been told by those people who are opposed to transformation back home in South Africa is not true. And I added to him, I said, we were well taught by Nelson Mandela and other iconic leaders like Oliver Tambo on how to continue to build a united nation out of the diverse groupings that we have in South Africa. We're the only country on the continent where the colonizers came to stay, and we have never driven them out of our country. So they are staying, and they're making great progress. It's a fringe grouping that does not have a lot of support, that is anti-transformation and anti-change, that would actually prefer to see South Africa going back to apartheid type of policies. And I said to him, I would never do that. I learned at the feet of Nelson Mandela, and we intend to proceed with the implementation of our constitutional architecture. And I thought in my conversation with him early in the morning at 4 o'clock South African time, he understood that. And I said, I'd like to come and meet him so that we can discuss this matter further. So those people who have fled are not being persecuted. They are not being, hounded. They are not being treated badly. And they are leaving ostensibly because they don't want to embrace the changes that are taking place in our country in accordance with our constitution. So we think that the American government has got the wrong end of the stick here. But we'll continue talking to them.
So face-to-face.
That if the Americans have got the wrong end of the stick, it's not like they're saying let's have talks about it. It's done. It's a done deal. 49 of these refugees now should be landing in the USA sometime today at the Dallas airport in New York, and that could be a few hundred more. We don't quite know what the numbers are, but it's certainly not a one-off, isn't it? Now, lots of people asking lots of questions about where this goes, right? We chatted to Professor Lauren Landau just now, but in the meantime, on Friday, just before we wrapped up the show, we received a call from a caller whose name is Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Remember, he's the Minister of Health. He's the former Minister of Home Affairs. And he responded to a question from the audience here, someone like you, who wanted to know about, what it means in terms of the rights of these refugees and their relationship with South Africa. And although he's now the Minister of Health and not Home Affairs, he called in, and this is what he said.
On the issue of the Constitutional Court judgment of having two nationalities, what it means practically is that if Elon Musk, it's just that I'm speaking under correction because I don't know when he left the country. But if he's one of those who qualify about the 1995 citizenship thing, it means if he wants to come back and vote in South Africa, he's definitely going to vote. In fact, I believe that's why DA was chasing the issue, because they say they've got 2 million people who are staying outside the country who they want to vote.
Yes.
And there's a hope and belief that they will vote for them. That's what it means. On the issue of refugees, Ashraf, remember refugee status is not controlled by Trump. It's only that Trump doesn't obey any international law. But refugee status is controlled by United Nations Convention of 1951, the United Nations Protocol of 1967, here on the African continent, plus the OAU Convention of 1969. In terms of that, once you are given a refugee status, any contact back with your country of origin is called reavailment. You have reavailed yourself from a country which you claim to have run away from, and so you must lose your refugee status. That's how it works internationally.
Okay, so your point is what I thought as well, that for you to be granted refugee status, whether it's from the UN or even Donald Trump's own way, the reasons you've been given that is you have confirmed to Trump that South Africa is not a country that you can tolerate living in. So they give you that status, and therefore, if you come back here, you've given them a reason to say, clearly you're not sound about your status. That's why you're comfortable coming back to South Africa, yeah?
Not only coming back, just any contact with that government where you ran from. For instance, even if you communicate or visit their embassy right here in the country where you ran to, that's called reavailment. In other words, you must cut all contact. Yes, definitely. They can't save you because they are supposed to be your enemy because you ran away, you couldn't tolerate.
Yeah.
If you understand what I mean, you couldn't tolerate them, they can't tolerate you. So you can't go back to be served by them. It's like being divorced, but going back to the person you are divorced to, and still being together with them when you actually told the court that the relationship is irrevocably broken down.
Okay, and because it's a safety issue, because primarily that's the reason they would want to flee the country, do I take it they're not even allowed to come back here on holiday?
If you go back on holiday, then it means you didn't run away, you were lying. You can't. I'm saying any form of contact, Ashraf, is called reavailment. You are reavailing yourself back to the regime who you claimed will harm you, does no longer want you. So if you ran away on the basis of persecution, why do you visit for a holiday? Because they will persecute you. So it doesn't, that's why I'm saying even visiting their embassy here, once you do that, you have reavailed yourself.
Right, so that's Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Now, what about the International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola? He also commented on the issue today. He's in preparation for the G20, right? So speaking about that in Pretoria, he said there's no data to back up a so-called persecution of white farmers.
There's no data at all that backs that there's persecution of white South Africans or white Afrikaners, to be more particular, who are farmers. And the police statistics which they are prepared to share and release don't break it. In fact, more farm dwellers are also affected by crime. And also white farmers do get affected by crime, just like any other South Africans who do get affected by crime. So this is not factual, it is without basis. Whether they have been vetted, there has been a process that involved the South African Police Service in that with regards to the South Africans who have left, checking all their criminal records and all the necessary procedures that they had to undergo. As I've said already earlier on, they can't provide any proof of any prosecution because there's not of any persecution, because there's none. There is no any form of persecution to white South Africans or to Afrikaner South Africans. And we are glad that a number of organizations, even from Afrikaner structures, have denounced this so-called persecution. They have stated that where there are challenges, there are platforms to resolve them within the South African context, which makes this a domestic issue. Our legislation provides sufficient platforms for any issue to be ventilated in that regard. And white South Africans, including Afrikaners, have voiced their views in this regard. And we welcome that as the government of South Africa, and we encourage more of such engagements and platforms to clarify in the world stage this disinformation that has now taken root.
Okay, there we are, three different perspectives of the same issue and where you fit in. In fact, we'll get a fourth perspective. We're going to check to Professor Lauren Landau, who'll reflect on the big wins and the big losses for these Amerikaners. We'll get to that in a moment.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favorite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,000, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,000. T&Cs apply.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, I often do this, right? What's your one word? When you think about all aspects of this whole refugee situation with the Amerikaners, and I can understand we have different perspectives, but if you put all of that in just one solid word, not a sentence, one word, what's your one word to describe what we've just seen unfolding in the last few months and now manifesting with the fact that 49 of these refugees now landing in the USA sometime today? WhatsApp us 0614-104-107, text or voice note, and then to call in live, we'll take your calls just now, 086 000 2032, and then tweet, as always. I look out for them, right? Using the hashtag The National Pulse when you tag myself and then SAFM Radio on the X platform. Right, so what about the big wins and losses these refugees may face, right? Professor Lauren Landau is with me, senior researcher with the Wits University's African Center for Migration and Society. Prof. Landau, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, I did ask that question, what's the one word you would use to encapsulate all that's happened? What's your one word?
I was thinking about that as you were asking the listeners, and I think the only thing I can come up with is absurd, or ridiculous, but also deeply disappointing. That's many words. That's
but they three, and they're all related in any ways: absurd, ridiculous, and deeply disappointing. I made a note of it, by the way, because I think it sums up what your feelings are around it, right? Let's then, okay, why do you think it's absurd?
Well, I think if we look at the people who've been taken, and I don't know who they are individually, but we know who they are as a group. This is not a group that is persecuted. They're not a group that has been, as a group, particularly disadvantaged. And they are going as the only refugees now being resettled from Africa and really from the world to the United States. So if we're saying there is a deserving population that needs protection, that needs to find safety somewhere else, this is absolutely not that group. And the fact that the United States, which has long at least performed ideas of principles of fairness, of welcome, of being open to the world, would do this is really, I think this is where my sort of disappointment comes.
But, it's interesting. One may argue, and we'll talk about this in a moment, one may argue the point that the absurdity you refer to and the point of ridiculous and deeply disappointing is less about these Amerikaners, as I call them, because I would think that they are pure opportunists who've seized upon an opportunity to try and make things happen for them in another country, almost like a green card on arrival, right? But the real absurdity then comes from the USA, right, and from Donald Trump. I mean, understanding, migration and international relations, how did we get to a situation where in a matter of months, they didn't just threaten, they played out the entire story to the point it's now happening. So the absurdity would be the USA, isn't it?
No, the absurdity is completely with the United States. And I don't deny that these people have opportunities and they've grabbed them, or maybe they genuinely feel that they are being persecuted in South Africa. And we can't know that, you and I. But I think the real, the sort of deep disappointment and the ridiculousness of it is the way in which the U.S. has processed this. If you had applied for a green card, you would be years waiting. Even a tourist visa, people don't get them as quickly as this. So it is a bit ridiculous, and this is a symbolic effort from Donald Trump, in part to discredit South Africa and its what he sees as its assault on kind of whiteness and white privilege. But it really is a message that he is sending to my fellow Americans, which is that the United States is now about protecting white privilege globally. And Donald Trump, is the savior of white Christian sort of society in the world. And that, to me, is deeply offensive and deeply problematic.
So let's then internalize it to these individuals. And so you don't know them. We know they're Afrikaners. By and large, people are speculating that most of them, in looking for opportunity, are doing so because they're not settled in their own country. That means they're not comfortable compared to many others, right? Now, having said that, in taking the trip to the USA, a one-way ticket, in effect, what for them would be their big gains and their big losses?
Well, I mean, there's the question of whether South Africa will revoke their citizenship or whether they would be welcomed back. If they were going to be welcomed back, then there's really no risk. If they don't like the United States, they can come home. And I suspect that in a few years, like many South Africans who go overseas looking for greener pastures, they'll realize life is not so bad back in South Africa. The risk in the US is that they will, like many Americans, face an economy that is not strong, that if you don't have the networks, you don't have the skills, you don't have those connections, you're not going to do well. We don't know what assistance they're going to get from the US government. This is the first time we've seen a program like this. Maybe they will be given the assistance required to really make it in the US. But if we look in the past at the refugee resettlement programs, it's often deeply difficult to make it in a new country. And I imagine many of them will be frustrated, not just by the weather, but by the cost of everything, and by the fact that they actually will find they have less privilege there than they did in South Africa.
Okay, you may have heard me chatting to Dr. Aaron Matsoleri on Friday. We've just replayed parts of that call-in that he made when he called into the show, right? And I can't quite remember the actual word, and I just escaped. Maybe Keys or Temba can help me with it. But the point he made is that if you're going under these circumstances as a refugee who is fleeing your country because you're under threat, right, then any contact with that home country will cause you to lose, or should cause you to lose, your refugee status. So, for example, if there's an American embassy in the US, a South African embassy in the USA, and one of these people are there, and maybe there's some problem with the children's ID document or something of that sort, and if they connect and ask for help at the South African embassy, they run the risk of forfeiting that refugee status that they've got. And they gave many other examples too.
Yeah, I mean, that is how the rules work in South Africa, where if you have the protection of another country, whether it's Zimbabwe, Somalia, Pakistan, whatever, then you're not seen as being a legitimate refugee, because that country can help you, it can protect you. Of course, each country can determine its own laws, and the US seems to be making up its laws as it goes along at the moment. And so whether these people might even be able to come home to South Africa for Christmas, who knows? Whether they're going to be able to have those rights, we'll see. My guess is that the US at this point wants to make this symbolic gesture, and once they're in the United States, will give them documentation and then largely forget about that.
Because, I mean, I think it is fair to say, unlike others who may speculate on a 3-month work permit or even on a 1-year permit or say try their luck at immigration, this in essence is a move for keeps, because I think the trauma, even if they chose to come back, would also be dramatic. So really, in essence, it's a journey that's a one-way ticket.
Well, I mean, we could say that, although refugees go all over the world and then eventually return. We've seen people go back to Ethiopia, to Liberia. Of course, a lot of South Africans who went overseas as refugees came back in 1994 or afterwards. Once they get their citizenship in the United States, and refugees are on an automatic path to citizenship there, they can go wherever they like. They can even come back into South Africa as tourists. I don't think it means giving up South Africa entirely, and that's part of why they're willing to do this, because the risks, in fact, for them are very low, and they just have the opportunities of work, of education for their children, of living in a place that is admittedly likely to be safer for them and for everybody else. So why not take that chance?
Now, early on, we played a clip from South Africa's President Ramaphosa, and he made the point, I've spoken to Donald Trump, and I said, it's not the way you say it. But it seems like Ramaphosa can only say that, but he can't enforce anything. The fact that he's like, I think we should meet and talk about it. Now, while they're doing that, I mean, it's a fait accompli, right? So what does this sense say about South Africa's relative leverage or lack thereof?
Well, I don't know that South Africa is any different from anyone when it comes to changing Donald Trump's mind with facts. He lives in a world that he has created or his advisors have created, and whatever South Africa says or whatever even his advisors tell him, if he doesn't want to believe it, he doesn't believe it. I think the bigger question is, what does South Africa do from here? And I think that is to actually step away from the media limelight here and just get back to negotiating with bureaucrats, with people who are more even-minded about trade. How can we get PEPFAR or HIV support flowing again? Reach out to people in Congress who support those programs, who recognize all that South Africa is doing to try to help its citizens, and leave Donald Trump out of it. Because as long as we're playing on this sort of global stage where he can get attention, you're never going to win.
That's a good point. Okay, let's leave it at that. I'm pretty sure we're going to talk more than just one day on this issue. Professor Lauren Landau, senior researcher with the Wits University's African Center for Migration and Society. So there we are. We have it. The Amerikaners. You're getting comfortable with that word. Let's get to the news headlines. Here's Zondia Bana.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, a bus driver has been shot dead in a robbery at Buffelsdraai in the north of Durban. It is alleged that the gunmen had pretended to be passengers and robbed the driver as well as the passengers. The Gauteng provincial government has revealed that it underspent by 1.8 billion rand at the end of the 2024-25 financial year, and the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, which has waged a 40-year insurgency against Turkey, has announced that it's laying down its arms and disbanding. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road, and the N3 northbound is a crash before Buccleuch interchange. The N1 southbound in Roodepoort, a truck crash before Maritzburg exit. Multiple lanes have been closed. In KZN, the N3 southbound has a multi-vehicle crash reported. In Cape Town, the R44 Clarence Drive is closed between Gordons Bay and Royals from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road, and Victoria Road is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
It's been a strange week for Orlando Pirates. I did say knocked out of the African Champions League, effectively out of the league now, knocked out of, lost the Nedbank Cup, and now we do know they don't have a coach any longer. My goodness, man. Have I missed anything there?
No, it's a lot. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, Jose Rivero has thanked Orlando Pirates supporters for their passion and loyalty as he prepares to steps down as a head coach. This morning, Pirates released a statement saying that they have granted the Spaniard an early release as he has signed with a new club. Now, he will serve as head coach for the last time tomorrow when the Buccaneers host Golden Arrows at Orlando Stadium. And under his leadership, the Soweto Giants lifted 3 MTN8 trophies, 2 Nedbank Cup titles, re-establishing themselves as a dominant force in South African football. And I think, Ashraf, it goes back to what you were saying, and allow me to finish my sentence first, because Pirates were in pursuit of a treble this season.
Mm-hmm.
They missed out on that. Liverpool, remember, they were aiming for a treble, and an announcement of a farewell was made mid-season. So now the big question, as you did say, is it the best strategy or not?
I did say that.
You did say that.
Can I talk now?
Yes.
I did say so.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. So
leave this emotional thing to say, we'll do it for the coaches saying goodbye. Like I've said so before about the Nedbank Cup.
Yeah.
And when they were talking about Kaiser Matonga, I also made the point. Ultimately, you don't win for Kaiser. You win because that's what you have to deliver for your team. So there's a disruption that took place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's proved. Meanwhile, there remains questions over Nasruddin Nabi's future, particularly with the Kaizer Chiefs in danger of missing out on the top 8. Nabi says that they had to start somewhere.
Orlando Pirates lost the final against SuperSport, but what I wanted to say is maybe at that final they understood how important it is to build the process of building their team. If you look at that final and how they play today or how they play in this season or last season, you see that it's a completely different team and it's a very good team. That means sometimes you can't be, you don't want to get things right away, but you need maybe sometimes to give time to rebuild and to allow yourself to suffer and to rebuild to be better.
Meanwhile, Coach Molefi Ntseki has praised his players for sticking to their game plan and delivering a crucial win that secured South Africa's qualification for the 2025 African Nations Championship. Bafana beat Malawi 2-0 yesterday at Loftus Versfeld, progressing with a 2-1 aggregate. Coming into the second leg, goal down, Bafana responded with goals from Victor Letswalo in the 12th minute and Captain Neo Maema in the 87th to seal the result. Then in cricket, India great Virat Kohli retired from Test cricket today after playing 123 matches in his glorious 14-year red ball career. Now, Kohli's retirement comes only days after his fellow veteran Rohit Sharma stepped down from Test cricket. Kohli scored 9,230 runs, including 30 centuries and 31 half centuries at a Test batting average of 46.85. He also led India in 68 Test matches and was India's most successful captain and 40 Test wins. So an end of an era, especially when we look at the Test things offside. In rugby, Sharks coach John Plumtree says that he's quite pleased with his team's gritty performance. This is after they secured a 29-10 bonus point victory over the Ospreys in the United Rugby Championship. The result sees the Sharks cement a home quarter-final in the URC playoffs. Despite scoring 4 tries, Plumtree says that the win, their third in a row, didn't come easy, with wet conditions at Kings Park making it a tough contest.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was sort of a workman-like performance, really. You know, I was just saying now how wet the pitch was, so boys found the ball quite dewy, and that sort of took away a real attractive game of rugby that, from both sides, really. So it became a kick battle, set-piece battle, and, you know, really just the mindset keeping the ball in front of the forwards and obviously our defence, you know, so I thought we were pretty good in that space.
Moving on to tennis, Naomi Osaka crashed out of the Italian Open after losing to Peyton Stearns 6-4, 3-6 and 7-6 as she struggles for form at the top level. Continues in the quarterfinals. Stearns will face one of Danielle Collins, who knocked out reigning champion Iga Swiatek. Then finally, MVP of this weekend, and this week is MVPs for this weekend. This is on my side. This is my thing.
If you don't choose the relay team, I'm not going to talk to you.
Literally, I am here to say my MVPs for this weekend: Bradley Nkwana, Bayanda Walaza, Sinesipho Dambile, and Akani Simbini. That's Team South Africa's 4x100 relay team who won at the World Athletics Relays in China, clocking 37.61 seconds. They won by 0.05 seconds. Not only did they beat the US, but also the 2024 Olympic champions Canada as well as Japan. And there is no African team that has ever won this event in any international competition.
Do we have like sound that we can play? Like applause.
Let's give them an applause.
Well, we need to do that, yeah. And I can imagine Donald Trump saying, they beat America, there's some bad things happening in South Africa. They're beating our relay team.
I mean,
it's really bad. Brilliant. And that last leg of Akani, absolute magic.
It's Akani's year.
Wow. Long may that continue.
The price of milk may be going up, but with Outsurance, you could be saving on your car insurance premiums. Like Irfan, who saves 411 Rand a month on his 2012 Ford Figo 1.4.
For a while, I've been looking for ways to save money, and within 10 minutes, I was signed up with him. I'm saving 411 Rand a month. Outsurance helping me save money.
Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
With Outsurance, when you look at it, it sounds too good to be true, but it's good. It's true.
Have you heard about the legendary Out bonus? After 3 consecutive years of not claiming, you'll get 10% of your paid premiums back in cash. Isn't it time you got something out of your insurance? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, so I'll get to your calls very, very shortly, okay? But give me your one word that encapsulates this entire refugee saga. Just one word, okay? I'd love to know what you think. In the meantime, let's talk about another very important issue. We know about dialogues or monologues. You don't often hear about a trialogue. But there's the Trialogue Business in Society Conference that we need to touch on now. And this year's conference will explore strategic approaches to social investment that remains effective despite, and this is the key, the shifting political and economic environment that we live in. So what are the hurdles faced by South African businesses in the main, NPOs and government in pursuing this meaningful social impact? As I talk about, I think, goodness man, I should be attending that event. Let's find out more with Kathy Duff, Director of Trialogue. Kathy, I appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Thanks, Ashraf, and thanks for inviting me on.
Thank you. We often talk about a tripartite alliance when it comes to political space. This is different, but in essence, the principles are the same, right? Different stakeholders coming together.
Exactly. So trialogue for business, for civil society, and for government coming together over, well, we actually started today, but kicking off majorly tomorrow and Wednesday to discuss and share case studies and lessons learned on key issues of social impact in the country.
So explain a bit more about the detail about who then attends and what is being discussed or resolved.
Sure. So the conference is actually running in a hybrid format, and so we'll have about 350 in-person delegates in Johannesburg, but we're also streaming the conference online, so it's open to a much wider virtual audience. And our overall theme this year is around driving impact, inspiring change. So we're really looking at a number of development topics, but in each of them focusing on where can we achieve impact, how can the different parties achieve impact, and how can we collectively drive change. So some of those topics that we're diving into, and all of them are obviously relevant to the social issues in the country, but we're looking at quite a few education topics. So we're starting out with a focus on the early years, looking at early childhood development, and this one's sponsored by the FirstRand Foundation. And in each of these topics, we'll have representatives from the different sectors talking about what's working, what is the role of the different sectors in each of these what is the role of the different parties in each of these sectors, and how can we really move things forward and kind of shift the system. So we start out with early learning, we move on to look at entrepreneurship, particularly youth entrepreneurship, and we're doing that in partnership with APSA. And again, we'll be looking at how do we embed entrepreneurship into the curriculum? How do we move from all these great policies and strategies into effective practice? So we'll be exploring that and looking at a few case studies. Then we're also looking at digital skills and kind of equipping our youth with the skills for the future. That's another topic we're looking at. And then we're also looking at transitioning youth from education through to careers. How do we make them future fit, and how do we provide youth with information about what the options are out there? So those are some of the sector topics that we're looking at. And then we're also broadly looking at what are the trends in social development. And you mentioned it in your intro, but there's a lot going on in the world and South Africa right now. I mean, the architecture of aid is shifting radically. You know, we've seen huge gaps now in South Africa in the health sector, for example, by the stopping or the withdrawal of the USAID funding. So there's big shifts in the sector. And so what should companies be doing to respond to this? Should they, and how should they be stepping in? What are some of the trends? What are some of the new financing models that they and nonprofits should be thinking about? So we'll be looking at public-private partnerships. We'll be considering alternative models like social impact bonds or investing in social enterprises rather than just nonprofits. And for nonprofits themselves, how do they future fit themselves? How do they look for alternative funding? And we actually have a session titled Cracking the Code, figuring out how to get funding from corporates, and we'll explore different models in that. And we've gotten very...
Give me some names. I like the name dropping aspect. I mean, give me some of the names of the speakers.
Sorry, I haven't done any of that yet. Yes, very powerful opening and closing keynotes. So tomorrow morning, opening the conference, we've got Busisiwe Mavuso, who's the Chief Executive of Business Leadership South Africa. You know, she's going to look at the role of companies and what should they be doing in terms of social development in the country. And then also a very powerful closing keynote with Dr. Naledi Pandor at the end of day 2. Who's going to be focusing on different ways of funding, particularly should companies be doing funding social enterprises, how should they be thinking about supporting research and development and innovation and things like that. Okay, so those are just two of our amazing speakers.
Yeah, I'm rather jealous. I have the privilege of knowing both of them, but I think one needs to be there. So you said it's in a hybrid form, right? Does that mean that it's open to the public to log in, or you still have restrictions?
So people need to register, and you can do that on our website. And if you don't manage to attend, either virtually or physically, because it is tomorrow, then we will be sharing the key insights from each of the sessions, as well as the videos in the coming weeks on the Trialogue website.
Okay, that sounds fabulous. Right. What then is the website address?
So it's Trialogue, trialogue.co.za.
Okay, fabulous. Well, I tell you what, feel free from your side as well, just to tweet it out, just to post the potential links. We can share it with our audience as well, right? Just the last thing, to go back to the original point. I mean, there's a sense of, great names like the two you've mentioned, and who are very forthright in what they may say. But if it, is it simply sort of research-based insights shared, or can actual decisions be made by the delegates that are present there?
So it's not a decision-making forum in and of itself. What we're hoping is that both research and case studies and lessons learned will be shared with delegates, so that delegates themselves can go and make changes in their organizations and in their programming. We as Trilog will also be taking the conversations forward on our various, what we call thought leadership platforms, and also looking at communities of practice in certain sectors to take the conversation forward. But the intention is not to make decisions during the conference, it's more to share innovations, case studies, lessons learned, and also to make, this is an important one, particularly for the in-person event, to make connections. Collaboration is so important nowadays. No one player can address any of these huge social issues by themselves. So making these connections and joining collaboratives and joining collective impact programs is vitally important, and that's something that the conference does spark, is connections across the sector.
Sounds absolutely wonderful. I can tell you in some form or the other, I will be logged in if it's not live, and certainly in terms of your insights, because I think that speaks to some of the things that I'm very, very interested in. I think that many of the listeners here on the National Pulse will feel connected in much the same way. So, Kathy Duff, much appreciate your time. Director of Trilog, TRIA, Trilog, right? As in dialogue with 3. Much appreciate your time and best wishes for this, I think, this groundbreaking event. But let's see what the insights are that come out of it. Certainly Busi Mavuso, together with Naledi Pandor and maybe many others, all talking to the audience on that platform, and we'll talk about that in the days ahead here on the National Pulse too.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit cfi.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45, proudly sponsored by CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
Catch SAFTA award-winning cooking reality show The Tastemaster SA from Tuesday the 13th of May at 7:30. Watch as 10 talented contestants take on delicious challenges to impress celebrity chef Zola Nene, along with special guest judges. Don't miss the season premiere, a heartfelt tribute to the incredible moms who inspire us all. That's Tuesday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. The Tastemaster SA, only on SABC2.
Right, make a note of this, okay? The city of Durban, they're once again ready to roll out the red carpet for thousands of delegates and influential buyers who are gathering from across the globe from the 12th of May today to the 15th. So it's all week to attend Africa's Travel in Durban. I can tell you now I've had the privilege of being there, broadcasting from there, moderated there in the past. What an energy about the place, right? Now, the Premier Travel Exhibition stands as the continent's flagship event showcasing the best that Africa has to offer in leisure travel. So visit Durban to explore and experience the city's unique offerings firsthand, from breathtaking hikes, thrilling indoor and outdoor adventures, vibrant culture, stunning natural landscapes, and world-class attractions. Join Durban Tourism at the stand, which is DEC-1G09 for your next holiday destination. If you need to know more, go to the website, visit Durban.travel, or follow Durban Tourism, that's DB and Durban Tourism, on the various social media platforms. There are lots of hashtags. Perhaps the one you need to know most, I think, is hashtag Africa Travel in Durban. That's the one you will not forget. Let's get to your calls after this.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, I want to get to know what you think. Right, so you can call in, you can WhatsApp, text, voice note, 30 seconds max if you do. And if you're calling in, make one solid point, okay? Colin in Cape Town, go for it. Hello.
Hi there, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
You know, most of us in South Africa, I would say the majority of South Africans are being persecuted. Why I say that? I just heard another bus driver killed. Shame. His wife, his father, the mother, they don't even know if he's coming home. He leaves for work and now he's gone. You know, you can't even go out anywhere at night because you can't go to an auto bank. You've got to look after, you know, your pulse goes so high whenever you want to go to a restaurant at night. You come out, you don't know if your car is there, so and so. We've got all these murders and rapes and things like that, and the government is stealing our money. That, to me, is also a persecution in a way, because you cannot go out and say to your wife and children, let's go have supper. You are too scared. You say, no, stay at home. Stay at home. We don't go out after dark.
Okay.
That to me is prosecution also.
All right, but it's not. It's completely different. I think in the context of the refugee position where it's a targeted community, you've just given the example, you said most of us. That means, yes, irrespective of religion, race, color, we are all victims of crime, and it's horrific and it's indefensible and it affects everybody. And government of the day, ANC or the GNU, they must sort it out. The difference is it's not targeted to one community, as has been said by the USA. Big point of difference there, Colin. Thanks for that contribution. Savage in Attridgeville. Go for it. Hello.
Yes, Ashraf, the modern day four trackers, those Suriname people, they can go set up camp in America and invite their likes. It's always minus 49 mouth to less worry about here in our country. But there's one point they've been making through and through that should they make contact now, they lose their refugee status. But I can't help get puzzled that we have mostly Zimbabwean refugees here that always go home Easter and December and every school holidays. And even their NGOs and their government always meddle with our issues when they're in trouble.
I don't think, I stand to be corrected. You see, I don't think that the Zimbabweans are here on asylum. They're not here as political asylum. They are economic refugees, if I can call it that, where they find they can't make ends meet in Zimbabwe, so they come to South Africa, they knock on the door. We all do that all the time. I think that's different. When you're a refugee because you're being persecuted, you have to, it's a declaration you have to make that I can't be in that country because I'm being targeted. That's very different.
Oh, okay, no. If there's a distinction between economics and political, then it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you decide you're going to take a job for a year in Rwanda, you're technically an economic refugee, but you're not forsaking your country. You're going there for 1 year of work and you come back. That's absolutely fine. Okay, Savage, thanks for that call. Let's get another Bonakele in Cape Town. Go for it. Hi, Bonakele.
Hey, Ashraf, long time not speaking to you, my brother.
I don't know why, but go for it.
Yeah, look, one thing that I must say about radio, because they say radio, educate, entertain, and inform.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to come up with right now, it's about someone participating in an unprotected strike. So if you go and participate in an unprotected strike, I'm talking about workers. What do you think those workers or employees should expect? To be dismissed, of course. So I'm referring to the 400 municipal workers in Ekurhuleni, and I think those are the top.
Yes, we covered the story last week, and before that, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, what I don't really understand, their union, SAMU said they were misled. Who actually misled their members to participate in an unprotected strike? So something that I don't really understand. Can you perhaps invite one of their shop stewards and explain how on earth can someone take a company vehicle, block the road, and do all those kind of funny things, and then you're gonna come up and say no, people were misled.
Well, that is why. Let's see. I mean, they were summoned to effectively state their case. Let's see how that plays out, and we'll find out very, very soon what's actually going to happen there. Bonakele, thanks for that call. I want to get to some of the voice notes, and there are many people commenting, understandably so. I asked you one word that best encapsulates your feelings about this entire Amerikaners saga. Here's one.
One word, Ashraf, is Amerikaners. Amerikaners. I'm happy that they just left us because I don't see the reason why we need to make so much noise about this. Amerikaners are just like that. Let them go. Leave us in peace.
Well, I don't know if we're making a noise. I think the reasons are it's a diplomatic row because it's an affront to our country. We can't leave that alone, can we? That's really where we are right now.
Ashraf, my one word would be counterproductive.
Okay, that makes it quite simple. Counterproductive, I suppose, for those who are taking out that refugee status, right?
Ashraf, good afternoon. Those Afrikaners, the one they went to America yesterday, I think GNU must make sure that they don't come back here. because they painted our country, they painted us as bad people. I think they will just stay there, lose everything what they have here. I like the way Aaron Motoledi explained it. I really like it. Thanks, Ashraf.
Thanks. I think he did explain it very, very well indeed, right? But we're talking about him. There's some issue about doctors not getting paid. We're not going to talk to him about it, but we may raise that issue just now, which is another big issue.
Ashraf, afternoon. Good riddance. That's all what I can say. Nobody needs them here in South Africa. They must go. Even the remaining ones must fall as well. Nobody needs them. Africa is for Africans, not American Africans. No, it's for Africans. Norman from Brixton.
Yeah, but Norman, when you say the remaining ones, you're saying all Afrikaners must go. We can't accept that. There are people who have a vested interest in this country and they're contributing to this country. And they speak different languages, different colors. In whatever the problems we've had in the country, rest assured, there are problems in the USA as well. To simply say they must all go, really, wow. You know it's wrong. You can't do that. Here's one on Trump.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. Ashraf, Donald Trump's law of Donald Trump says white Afrikaner refugee. The American law itself doesn't have such a thing. Let's wait for the United States of Donald Trump for the next 3 years. Then the next president will talk about the U.S. law.
Well, there we are. I believe there's going to be they may arrive sometime tonight. I'll get the exact dates, times just now. We'll chat to Sophia McQueen as well after 5 o'clock on that issue. Can you imagine? The story is that Donald Trump will host a press conference when they arrive. Has he ever done that for others too? Like, what's his end game in all of this? It's 4 o'clock. Let's get the news. Here's on Della Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. A bus driver shot dead in Durban, and Kurdish group PKK agrees to disband. For SAFM News, I am on Delambana, and a very good afternoon. A bus driver has been shot dead in a robbery at Buffelsdraai in the north of Durban. It is alleged that the gunmen had pretended to be passengers and robbed the driver as well as the passengers. According to Prem Balram, who is the spokesperson of a private security company, the suspects then shot the driver and fled with an undisclosed amount of cash.
We were informed of a shooting in progress and that 3 suspects had robbed a bus. Upon arrival, it was established that 3 armed men had robbed several passengers in a mobile bus and then shot the driver twice. The driver was expedited to hospital, where he later passed on. A case of murder is being investigated and the suspects remain at large.
The Gauteng provincial government has revealed that it underspent by 1.8 billion rand at the end of the 2024-25 financial year. The provincial government says 58% of the underspending came from the health and education provincial departments, while 42% was attributed to other various departments. Finance MEC Lebogang Maile explained that of the 1.8 billion rand underspent, a total of over 380 million rand was from conditional grants from the national government, while 1.4 billion rand came from the provincial equitable share funds. Milo was addressing a media briefing in Johannesburg.
Of the 381.510 million in conditional grant underspending, a total of 295.665 million was the subject of an application to the National Treasury, while the relevant departments could not motivate and provide evidence for the balance of 85.845 million, which will revert to National Revenue Fund. The 1.418 billion in the provincial equitable share funding will also be subject to an internal Gauteng provincial government process led by Gauteng Provincial Treasury and subject to intense scrutiny.
The Democratic Alliance in Limpopo says it has collected a petition of over 12,000 signatures from disgruntled residents in the Waterberg district, complaining about poor service delivery in various municipalities. The petition was signed over the last 3 months in Bilabila, Modimolle, Mukgupong and Tabazimbi. The DA has vowed to take the petition to the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces to address the concerns of residents. The political head for Waterberg, Desiree van der Walt, says this is their last resort to compel municipalities to provide services to the people.
It's also a great opportunity to take a petition of this nature due to the history we've had in the specific 3 municipalities over the last 2-3 terms to Parliament whilst we have a new government there, where there's a minister who is very focused on his duty at the Koktal level. So we're going straight to Parliament and the NCOP because we're now in desperation. People aren't getting services and money is not spent what it's supposed to be spent on.
A Northern Cape man has been found guilty of child abuse and negligence and sentenced to 4 years in prison by the Fraserburg Regional Court after he strangled his 1-year-old son in 2023. The child survived the incident, which had followed an argument with the mother. Provincial Police spokesperson Molefi Shamane says the sentence is suspended for 5 years provided the accused does not commit a similar offence.
The conviction follows an incident on 31st October 2023 when the Calvinia Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit received a report that the father had allegedly strangled his son out of frustration following an argument with the child's mother. The court found the accused guilty and sentenced him to 4 years imprisonment, wholly suspended for 5 years, condition that he does not commit a similar offence during the suspension period. In addition, the court declared him unfit to possess a firearm.
The Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, which has waged a 40-year insurgency against Turkey, has announced that it's laying down its arms and disbanding. The PKK's decision will give Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan the opportunity to boost development in the mainly Kurdish southeast, where the insurgency has handicapped the regional economy for decades. The BBC's Ola Guren has the details.
This is a historic moment for Turkey, its Kurdish minority, and neighbouring countries where the conflict has spilled over. A spokesman for President Erdogan's ruling party said it was an important step towards a country free of terror. Here in the Kurdish heartland, there's been a muted response so far. Local people told us they welcomed peace and wanted no more deaths on either side. Many are calling for the release of the PKK leader, Abdullah Öcalan, jailed in an island prison for 25 years. And they want guarantees of greater Kurdish rights.
Recapping the top story, a bus driver has been shot dead in a robbery at Buffelsdraai in the north of Durban. It is alleged that the gunman had pretended to be passengers and robbed the driver as well as the passengers. I'm on Dilambana First FM News Headlines at 4:30.
In your sports this hour, Ancelotti appointed as Brazil new head coach. Junior Box looking to build on current form, and Kaba claims her first 10-kilometer victory in the lead-up to Paris. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N1 southbound in Roodepoort has a truck crash reported before Murraysburg exit. The road is closed. And Solomon Mhlangu Drive westbound in Pretoria has a crash at Linwood Road. In KZN on the N3 northbound in Ladysmith, crash recovery underway near Tokela Toll Plaza. Traffic is stacked and you are to expect delays. And Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road, the M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and Coburg Road southbound in Brooklyn queuing towards the N1 Coburg interchange. With your traffic updates, I'm Irma G.
Slipper Day is on the 30th of May, and I'm helping to make big dreams come true. When you support Slipper Day, you're helping Reach for a Dream bring smiles and joy to children facing tough illnesses. Do you want to help too? You can visit reachfordream.org.za to find out more about Slip a Day. Let's do it for the dreamers! This is an SABC supported initiative.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, you know, one of the things that we need to talk about, which is when people talk about persecution, as per Collins School, is there are at least 10 sectors in South African society that are not functional well. And that's really, really sad, you know, from the issues of obvious crime to unemployment to inequality to service delivery. And then this issue about doctors and overtime pay and them battling for salaries as well has come to the fore once again. Remember a few months ago, the Minister of Health made the point, like, we can't give them, or we can't even give them jobs. We don't have the money. We don't have the budget, right? So it is in that context, let's talk about this, right? Dysfunction in the Gauteng Department of Health has hit home hard for many of these doctors in the public sector. Well, end of the month, 29th of April, when their overtime payments due for the month went unpaid. That means they got their salaries, they didn't get their planned overtime. So why is that the case? And what to do next? Dr. Cedric Sihlangu is with me, General Secretary of SAMATU. Dr. Sihlangu, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Greeting, Ashraf, and thank you for having us.
All right, give me the data. What's the story?
Look, essentially the way doctors work is that you do your normal workday from, say, 7 or 6:30 to about 4 or 5, right? Mm-hmm. And then during a week, you will also do what we call calls, overtime. It's committed overtime. So you might do a so-called call on a Monday, then you come back, normal work on the Tuesday, Wednesday, then you go back on the night cover on the Thursday, for example, and sometimes you cover a weekend. So that's part of the normal structure that, you know, we've adopted in South Africa in terms of how a doctor works. So you've got your fixed basic salary, and then you've got your so-called committed overtime. They go hand in hand, and they get paid monthly as one salary, right? So that has been ongoing for many years, since I think post 2009 from the PSCBC resolution. But what has happened is there's a desire to move away from that system, and I think the National Department of Health now has started a process of reviewing various policies, including the committed overtime policy. But what happened in April is the Gauteng Department of Health wanted to proceed and effect some changes and move doctors from the so-called, groups of the committed overtime, from working certain hours to working certain hours. And we thought, hang on a bit, this needs to be done in consultation. You can't just bring changes that we feel are not thoroughly consulted, and it's going to obviously have a direct impact on the doctor, right? And during that time, we had a meeting with the HOD and we found each other. There was an amicable resolve, and it was agreed that they would not effect these changes. Doctors will continue working as they did, and they would be remunerated accordingly. Soon thereafter, the minister also issued a statement through the DG confirming that there shall be no changes. Doctors will continue working their normal work hours in their overtime, and they shall be remunerated until such time that the whole thing has been reviewed. But lo and behold, come end of April, when doctors expected their overtime, many doctors, in fact, in various hospitals in the province, were not paid. It's only a few, for example, maybe in Steve Biko, that were paid, but some even in Steve Biko were not paid. So essentially, it meant that somehow somewhere in the process, somebody didn't do their job. And as a result, doctors did not get paid. And of course, it has serious consequences. People have now defaulted on their bonds. They've defaulted on the other obligations, which has got serious ramifications for the, for the colleagues. So that's where we are, and we've been trying to really push the department to resolve this issue. Unfortunately, we get a date that it will be resolved, and when that date comes, it doesn't get resolved, to the extent that doctors had a meeting, obviously through the leadership of Samatu, that come the 15th of May, which is a couple of days' time. If they still haven't received their payments, they shall cease to perform committed overtime, meaning that there shall be no cover in the hospitals after 4 o'clock, because essentially the doctors currently are working under no real legal obligation. There's no contract in place that actually mandates them to do the work. And we don't even have contracts that have been signed confirming that you actually should be on duty. So those are the issues
but they can't walk away either. I mean, I think I understand the nature of doctors on call is that ultimately they are asked to extend their times. So yes, there's no contract, but there's an understanding if they walk away, it will be, besides the money part, it'll be like they're showing indifference. They're not interested, isn't it?
Yeah, you see, the doctors were very clear, in fact, that it is not their desire to be seen as abandoning patients. It's not for the poor, the unsuspecting public, the innocent public to suffer consequences. The only danger from a labor law perspective is that, Ashram, all along, there have been committed overtime contracts that have been signed. So the new financial year started in April. So at that point, there were supposed to be new contracts that come into effect that covers the doctor to perform duties after hour, which they shall be remunerated for. So at this current juncture, there's no such contract in place. So if the employer does not pay you, they can come back and say, yeah, but who told you to work? So that's the situation that the doctors have found themselves in. So even those who did not get paid, there's a difficulty that says, but you don't even have the contract that might suggest that you should be paid. So the issue is that if the department does not resolve this issue, confirm that the doctors should be on duty and equally pay them for the work that has already been done. So what cover do they have that they will continue to get paid going forward? And that's the position that they find themselves in.
So is it a case of they didn't get paid because they didn't sign a contract, or they didn't get paid, they decided not to work? Meaning going forward now, if they refuse to then work overtime, somebody has to fill that void. And clearly from the various hospitals, if they don't have the doctors to fill the void, to do the extra time, overtime, then the patients will be compromised anyway.
It's an administrative chaos, Ashraf, at this particular point in time, where nobody knows whether, firstly, you've got a contract to perform the overtime or not. What had transpired is doctors completed the forms and submitted them, and HR returned them because HR was of the view that the category that the doctors wanted to do was not the one that the department wanted. But at that very same time, the National Health Department issues a circular that everything should be kept as it was before the end of financial year, meaning that the doctors actually should be allowed to continue in the manner that they were doing all along. But the problem that exists now is that on the one hand, the provincial department has not approved those contracts to confirm that you should indeed work in the manner that you used to work prior, and they are the authority in terms of the employer in the current employer-employee relationship. So they can only work upon approval of the provincial department.
So what's the morale of the doctors right now? I mean, they're continuing with their work. They didn't get paid their overtime, which amounts to some money that they probably had budgeted for. What's the morale of the doctors right now?
Let me tell you, Ashraf, and to be honest with you, it's not just some money. It's quite a substantial portion, because if you can think of how doctors work, every week throughout the month, you'll do at least 2 or 3 calls. So it's quite a substantial portion of their salaries. So in fact, this has significantly impacted on our colleagues. And as I mentioned to you, you've got school fees to be paid, you've got your debtors to be satisfied, and because of that, you've now defaulted on your obligations. You still go to work on a daily basis. You still stretch yourself beyond just your normal work hours, because these doctors are continuing to work after hours. I'm talking about doctors who, when you and I knock off now, they will be going into these wards, going into the emergency departments to cover, not knowing whether they'll get paid or not, but because they genuinely and passionately feel strongly that they ought to render a service. But what we are saying is that you can't then have somebody who doesn't seem to value the dedication of doctors and who simply wants to treat this as something that is not that important, can be dealt with as any other administrative issue. That is not acceptable.
So let's end with this, right? who does the buck then ultimately stop with, number one? And going forward, what do you anticipate is going to happen now?
Ashraf, let's look at health in Gauteng as, Gauteng being a very sentinel province. If you look at, how important it is in the whole health of this country. Mpumalanga relies on Gauteng in terms of their oncology services. They refer patients here or for many other investigations. Mpumalanga does not even have an MRI. If you look at Limpopo, it refers to Gauteng. If you look at Northwest. So Gauteng actually should be a national priority. Now, what we're saying is we've been seeing so many failures in Gauteng. I mean, if you look at the issues at Rahima Musa, if you look at the issues at Tembisa and so forth, it says to us, Gauteng has been infiltrated. Gauteng is actually collapsing at a multifaceted and systematic level. Now, it can't simply be an issue of the HOD, because in this instance, the HOD correctly issued a circular saying, ensure that the doctors will be paid. But come end of the month, they didn't get paid. So it tells you that it can't be individualized to be an HOD problem or an MEC problem. Perhaps, Ashraf, we need to start considering invoking Section 100 of the Constitution to place the entire governance of Gauteng under administration, for somebody to take over the governance, because things are failing and they're crumbling.
Wow, there we are. Failing and crumbling is the last words, and we'll leave it at that in terms of what may happen next. Dr. Cedric Sitlangu, General Secretary of SAMATU. It's interesting, on those issues, how basic bureaucratic issues are stifling our ability to service deliver in so many sectors of society. And here's another example of that, right? Perhaps we'll get a response from the relevant Gauteng Department of Health. I think we should. I'll see between Keys and Temba whether we can line that up too. In the meantime, we'll stay with the theme of medical, because we're going to talk about International Nurses Day right after this.
Banyana Bus Style are confident nothing will stop their winning mentality, while Richmond United ladies are highly spirited to display a first-class performance. Gauteng is up against Northern Cape. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the delight of Mzansi's women's football, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Richmond United Ladies on Sunday 18 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
This year, our entire continent will gather. People from different places united by a common goal: to discover, to connect and to grow. The world will get to see our vision, the vast potential that lies within an unlimited Africa, with the objective of creating market access to our vast array of leisure tourism products. Join us from 12 to 15 May at the Durban ICC for this unforgettable experience. South Africa awaits. Come find your joy. Africa's Travel Indaba is proudly brought to you by South African Tourism.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
We will chat to Colin Msibi shortly regarding some of the transport logistics that has carried the Amerikaners to their new home. In the meantime, let's talk about, and I'll get to your calls too. Don't forget those one word that best encapsulates your feelings about the entire Americana saga. Let me know. In the meantime, let's talk about nurses on International Nurses Day. The Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa, that's DENOSA, announced its commemoration plans of International Nurses Day today. And the main celebration being held at the Grace Tertiary Hospital in Pietermaritzburg. Let's find out more about it with Kwena Manamela, the General Secretary of DENOSA. Kwena, I appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you. So what happens on International Nurses Day?
It is done every year, Ashraf. It is an International Council of Nurses plan that the countries celebrate the International Nurses Day on the 12th. It's the birthday of Florence Nightingale, whom we can call or term the pioneer of modern nursing. So it was done in other countries, and other countries joined later, like South Africa, we joined. Although I know that government might not be recognizing this as yet to officially recognize it as one of the in the calendars, health calendars, to be celebrated. But yes, we celebrate it because we are affiliated to the International Council of Nurses. Every year, they encourage countries or member countries, national nursing associations to also celebrate. So we blend these celebrations because it's on the 12th. Some of the provinces might not do it today. 3 provinces that are doing today's KZN is the main event. I'm in Mpumalanga myself, and then the other one is in the Eastern Cape. So the other provinces will do on some other days, because May, we consider May as the nurses month.
Okay.
Because we celebrate the students, we celebrate the midwives, then we celebrate the nurses themselves.
And overall, when you say celebrate, is it really just that, backslapping celebration, or is it coming together for a bigger cause and finding out what more needs to happen in terms of making allowing the nurses to impact on patients and their lives a lot better than they do right now?
Yeah, actually, there are many things that are happening, Ashraf, in the life of a nurse on a daily basis, but we're thinking that this one, although we know there are so many things that we might not celebrate, but we celebrate in that goodness that is there, that is doing all that she can today. Let's come together. It's like a birthday. You're celebrating your birthday. Whether it's a bad day, it's a good day, you come and celebrate your own birthday. So we're saying, let's celebrate, talk about the good things, dance if there's a music, and then get people that will present and encourage you, and then you'll have the motivational speakers come, and so on. And then so that at least you come together. That coming together itself to us is some form of a healing.
Okay.
Although we may know that there isn't much by now to celebrate.
Okay. Well, maybe that's the last part that's so important. There isn't much to celebrate. How then do you use this celebration to galvanize support again for some directed aims of the nursing community? I mean, you certainly want to do that, don't you?
Yeah, no, we do. Remember, in preparation for this day, we normally would celebrate it together with our stakeholders, key stakeholders. One will be government. Government do come. I know in many provinces, the minister was supposed to be in KZN. We were with the MEC here in Mpumalanga, and I know in the Eastern Cape, although also there will be some government people that will come. The South African Nursing Council will come. The academia will come. And then the nursing directorate or the nursing office will also come. And then in that way, we'll present whatever we present on that day, and then we'll take it from there as a way forward, going forward. So
right.
it makes us to come together with the other stakeholders.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Appreciate your time. Kwena Manamela, the General Secretary of DENOSA. This on this day that they're celebrating International Nurses Day, but it's celebrated in more than one centre, maybe the main one at the Grace Tertiary Hospital in Maritzburg, but in reality there's a few more centres around the country. But as Kwena said, in fact, there are lots that's not working in the nursing fraternity. I'll get to some of your WhatsApp voice notes right after this.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, keep it going with your one word that best encapsulates what we feel right now regarding the issue of the refugees. That's the one thing, but that's not all. There are many other things that you may want to raise, whatever it is that you can. Let's just see if we can play. Let me just get Keys to try and sort out that voice notes on the other side, because we need to do that, right? Let me, right, I think we are good to go. No. Okay, we'll try and sort that out in just a second. Right, let me just remind you as well, we'll chat to Sophie Mokoena coming up just now. She'll give us an update from an international relations perspective as well, where we are, right? But some of the issues, and certainly the issues of Zimbabwe and citizenship also comes to the fore.
People must just say Zimbabwe on everything, guys. There's some way you don't need to mention Zimbabwe, please, man. No.
But why? What's your point? You're not saying why. I mean, I know what the other caller asked, but I mean, like, why can't you relate to Zimbabwe, for example? Right, here's another.
Hi, Ashraf. On the judgment for the dual citizenship from the DA, I want to find out if your experts know when the tax is being checked. Who are the dual citizens going to pay the tax to? Who's going to get that money?
Okay, I'm not the accountant or the HR expert. My guess is it could well be in both countries, wherever they're working, and the other. So you could actually have two taxes, I think. But somebody knows better than me. Let's talk about it.
Hi, Chef Errol here from Durban. One word for these so-called refugees is opportunistic. I have a lot of black friends who said if they were given half the chance, they would go to, because of the unemployment rate and the crime rate in South Africa. So, yeah, that's my take on it. Errol, Durban.
Thanks, Errol. When you and I align, I use the word opportunistic as well. And I think that's exactly what it is. They're not being persecuted, but whoever's decided they are and are giving them an opportunity of another life, all paid for to get there. It's like, hey, man, let's just go for it. You never know. Our fortunes may change completely.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Makware Shenzo from Tendo. My one word to describe this move by this Afrikaner, I would say madness. This is the madness of the highest level. How on earth would these people trust a person like Donald Trump? Because Trump is like a loose cannon. He can say something today, but tomorrow he changes his mind. And another problem I have with these people is that what would happen when Trump's term comes to an end? Oh, man.
Well, I mean, I think you're right. We know that he's hugely erratic, is Donald Trump. So you never know what he's going to say next. And he can change his mind completely based upon what he said on a Monday to a Tuesday. I'm not saying anything different, am I?
Hi, Ashraf. I don't think this is an Afrikaner refugee program any longer. From the news reports here now, it's open to all ethnic groups, all minority ethnic groups of South Africa. Yeah, thanks, Ashraf.
All right, and no, we'll play some others later on. Right, let's get to the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, 3 most wanted criminals from a notorious gang have been killed in a shootout with the police at a house in Amaoti in Inanda Township, north of Durban. The Democratic Alliance in Limpopo says it has collected a petition of over 12,000 signatures from disgruntled residents in the Waterberg district complaining about poor service delivery in various municipalities. And Rwandan President Paul Kagame has called on all African countries to work together and deal with conflict and coups on the continent. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Solomon Mhlangu Drive in Pretoria has a crash reported at Linwood Road. In Bedfordview, the N3 southbound queuing towards Van Buren Road and the N12 R24 westbound queuing on both routes towards Gilulis Interchange. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg has a crash before New England Road, the N3 westbound queuing towards Pavilion Shopping Centre exit, and the M3 St John's Avenue is slow moving through central Pinetown. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, the M5 southbound is queuing towards the N2 highway, and the N7 northbound in Dunoon has ramp closure, so no access to Malibongwe Drive due to protest action in the area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me, you want to talk about Amajita.
Yes, so let's start things off with football, where South African under-20 national team coach Raymond Mdaka says that tonight they are playing their most important match in the under-20 Africa Cup of Nations tournament, as victory over the Democratic Republic of Congo would see them qualify for the under-20 FIFA World Cup. Now, the two teams lock horns at the Suez Canal Stadium in Egypt in the fourth and last qualifier at 9 p.m. That's 8 p.m. South African time. Amajita finished as Group A winners, but Ndaka says that qualifying for the World Cup in Chile has always been the primary target.
Well, the team's still fine. Everything is okay. We don't have injuries. We were a bit worried about the freshness of the team, but so far in our last session we could see Much as we have used a number of players without a replacement for so long, I think they still look a bit fresh, and we think we have got the energy to take tomorrow's game. It's the most important game because every country that came here might be thinking of or might have thought of other results, but the core business is to qualify for the World Cup. So to us it becomes the final Big Four. I think that's the main reason for everybody to be here.
So wishing the boys nothing but the best. It's 8 p.m. South African time if you want to watch them play. Elsewhere, Real Madrid manager Carlo Ancelotti has been appointed as Brazil's new head coach. Ancelotti will take the helm for next month's qualifiers against Ecuador and Paraguay, and his contract will run through the end of next summer's World Cup finals, just like Thomas Tuchel's with England. And Brazil are currently fourth in the 10-nation South American standing with the top 6 to qualify. You're probably asking yourself, so what then happens to Real Madrid? Well, Xabi Alonso has reportedly agreed to replace Ancelotti as a Madrid boss. Alonso confirmed on Friday that the time is right to quit German Giants Leverkusen after 2 successful seasons. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that story and waiting for a full-on confirmation. In rugby, Junior Springboks head coach Kevin Foote says that although the team didn't get the results they wanted, they are firmly on the right track. South Africa held a narrow 26-24 lead at halftime, but New Zealand edged ahead in the second half to secure a 48-45 win in Gqeberha. And he believes that the group is on an important journey with players who understand and are committed to their game model.
The first thing is we're on a massive journey together. You know, some of us have only met each other. I only met Riley a couple of months ago. So we are definitely working hard on our game model, and I think we've got 5 principles that everybody sort of understands now. And yeah, I agree with you. Maybe on one day one fired, and on another day the other didn't fire. But I think that from a character perspective and a leadership perspective, we are firing, and the lessons that we're learning here are going to be great for us going forward. So yeah, there are different aspects in our game that we haven't got everything together all in the same game. But having said that, I'd rather that comes together in June, July than now.
Finally, in athletics, multiple South African record holder Glenrose Xaba delivered on her status as the pre-race favourite by claiming victory at the Absa Run Your City 10-kilometre in Cape Town yesterday. The race, which drew an impressive crowd of 15,000 during the event's 10th anniversary, saw Xaba win the Cape Town leg for the first time, clocking a sub-32-minute finish for her first series win of the year. She dedicated that win to her 2 coaches, Violet and Caster Semenya. Ethiopian runner Salem Gabre finished second in 32:13. And speaking to SABC Sport, Xaba said that she embraced the pressure of being the favourite and was very proud to meet expectations.
I told you people that the challenge does not scare me, it just motivates me. I'm much very happy to win the race in the good field, the fast field, the strong moments. I was having the Salima, the fastest one. I'm very glad that I'm able to cross the finish, the first one. I just want to thank God and thank my fans and thank my family and my friends, my coach, Violet. She's always there for me. Happy Mother's Day to my coaches, both of them, Caster and Violet. And thank you to your children for give us their moms to support us all the time.
Okay, so listen, you gave your MVP of the week.
I did.
To the relay team, understandably so. I mean, they won on a global stage and they beat the USA. But we've had some people calling in to say, "Listen, come on, man, how can you ignore Kaizer Chiefs no matter what happens anywhere in the world?"
I mean, how on earth can I forget? So, I'm a Kosi Nation.
How are you going to fix this up?
Let me fix it.
Makosi tumela, Makosi tumela, Makosi tumela, 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 Makosi tumela, Makosi tumela.
So really, Dumedi, some Kosi fans are dumelang. A big congratulations to all the Kosi fans. Yo, everyone is happy. We're hearing about Chiefs everywhere, in the corner, in the office, on social media. I'm assuming we are yet to hear about this until the end of the year. So let Chiefs fans enjoy the moment because they've been waiting for this.
The last time they won anything, Zuma was the president. first round. I mean, that just shows
I
you.
mean, it's a fact.
So, like, that's why, please, you must give them all the accolades. Give them another applause, Phineas. I mean, like, literally, we don't know when it's going to happen again. Okay, we are done. Thanks, you guys all okay? Thank you.
All right, I'll have more other sports in the next hour.
Hi everyone, my name is Itumele Nkune, SABC Sport football analyst. When I feel down and I listen to gospel, it gives me motivation. I'm a person who loves all genres. If I was a chef, my favorite meal that I would prepare would be pap, cabbage, meaty bones, with a bit of acha on the side. My favorite language is Portuguese. Bom dia, como está? Estou bem. What I like about SABC Sport is they give you the platform and the permission to be yourself and speak any language.
Catch the ever-passionate Itumele Nkune's analysis of Ibola Letu on match days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Let's get to the markets now with Mark Wemus. In fact, we'll do that in just a moment.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, let's get to those facts and figures with Makwe Masilela. As always, who was the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. You've got news, local and global, but importantly, Boxer's yearly results.
Yeah, afternoon to you and to the listeners. Here's the new kid on the block. Remember, they were unbundled from Pick and Pay and listed separately last year, November, and they now have 525 stores. And through their discount model, the guys managed to drive volumes whilst giving customers value for money. Sales up 5.6%, trading profit up 10%, but their profits as headline earnings per share is down almost 12%. Hence, the share price is down almost 3.6%. And Ashraf, we started the session on a positive note as signs of progress when it comes to US-China trade talks boosted hopes that the global recession might be avoided, though we were still looking for details or specifics, and details then started rolling. Then that the guys said they agreed to drastically roll back tariffs on each other's goods for an initial 90-day period, and there is a major escalation. And Ashraf, as we have been saying, now afford to have those kind of tariffs on the economies, and also helping sentiments of the fragile ceasefire between India and Pakistan, while Ukraine president said he was ready to meet Russia president in Turkey come Thursday, and that is for talks. And locally, the Bureau for Economic Research has slashed our SA GDP forecast to 1.5. Initially, they thought it would grow by 2.5%. Oil prices adding to last week's sharp gains after the world's two largest crude oil consumers announced a pause when it comes to their reciprocal tariffs. Brent crude is up almost 4% at $65 a barrel. And this very same reason that drove traders to leave safe havens, now they're more into risk-driven asset as concerns about a global recession eased. We see gold is down 2.5% at 3,238. Ashraf, there was no need for coffee this morning as we got enough stimulus from the news rolling in from Switzerland. Global markets are up, but the local pause gave back most of the earlier gains because of our resources. We are only now up 0.3%. The rand weakened 0.8% against the dollar is 18.31, 24.17 against the pound, and 20.34 against the euro.
I'm thinking about your no need for coffee, and I think half the population listening say, hey, wake up and smell the coffee.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, so keep the calls coming. I also think, is there anything else you want to pick up on? By the way, there was an interesting, I'll talk about it later on regarding the celebrations of the Kaizer Chiefs game. What it came across was that, in fact, some of the coaches were jostling with the captain of the team of Chiefs, right? Just when he received the trophy. And normally, you get it on your own. And in a case like this, they stormed him and they were like sharing the limelight up front. I'm sure you saw that. I wonder what you make of all of that, right? But anyway, let's talk about another important issue, regarding the Afrikaners or the Amerikaners. So 49 of the South Africans we still call them South Africans. It's an interesting one. Have left for the USA. They should be arriving there sometime today. Now, what about the logistics around it from a South African perspective? Let's get the thoughts of the spokesperson for the Department of Transport, Colin Msibi, to talk about just that. Colin, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having us.
Right. So, there's so many different angles to this, right? Firstly, I mean, we know at the core, we don't have to discuss that. That was made by, or the offer was made by Donald Trump. So what did South Africa have to do, I'm talking about your department, to ensure that these refugees, in inverted commas, were able to leave the country safely as per their desire and as per the request of the American president?
Well, from our part as a department, we were not required to do anything, but there is what we call an International Air Services Council, which is an independent council from the department, even though it falls under their department. So the council received an application for a foreign operator's permit. In other words, a permit by an airline to fly into South Africa to pick up the Afrikaners. So that's what we received, and obviously that was forwarded to the department, and we pass it over to the council to be able to process the application. What does the application say? The application basically gives the reasons for that application. In this case, we're told that it is to transport the Afrikaners who are relocating to the U.S. as refugees. That was the purpose of the application. And then they had to state how many flights. There was only one flight. And then as well as the route that they were going to take, which was if I may explain the route, the flight was coming from Texas via Dakar to South Africa in OR Tambo. And thereafter it goes back to the U.S. via Dakar and then to Washington Dulles Airport outside of Washington, D.C., and then to Texas. So basically, that's what the application would say. So in terms of processing the application, there is the technical aspect of it, which must go to CAA, Civil Aviation Authority, where they must look at the technical aspect of the plane, its capacity, how many people it's supposed to transport, as well as the paperwork of the crew members. So all those things were given to the council, and then the council processed the application, and then they approved the permit. So basically, that's what happened on our side through the council.
Okay, I think the fundamental issue for all of us is: did this cost South Africa's taxpayers any money? A, from the flight, to B, in terms of some of the paperwork that was involved in processing them for them to depart the country. Did it cost money?
Well, not in terms of rands and cents. Of course, the resources of the states that are being used, when you send emails and all sorts of it, and the time that is spent preparing that application to go, those are the resources that are used of the state. And of course, that's what happens with any other application when it comes to the permit. So we've had to do that. We can't deny processing an application on the basis that people are saying they are refugees. Ours is basically an administrative role. So we've had to do that. When it comes, to answer your question specifically, the resources in terms of time that is spent and preparing the application, but also we had to inform DIRCO to say there's this application which is being dealt with by the council. So we've had to do that. But in terms of monetary value, we didn't put any money into it as far as I know.
Is there anything else that you did from your department side that you would like to share with us?
Well, once the permit is done and it's approved, we then hand it over to the operator. In this case, it was Omni Air International. So Omni Air International, they've got an obligation to file what we call a flight plan with the ATNS. So in other words, the ATNS, the air traffic control guys, they need to know the time as to when you're arriving, when are you leaving, what time are you going to be leaving the U.S. All those things must be in this flight plan. So what happened yesterday is that the flight was supposed to arrive at 6 in the afternoon and leave at 8 o'clock. but it ended up leaving around 10:30 in the evening. And obviously the flight plan said it's up to 8 o'clock and then we're out of here. So, I mean, if we have to look at the rules, not unless they file what we call a delay message, their flight plan had lapsed. So, but I suppose there was an issue. I mean, they had to communicate with the controllers to say there's delays, and eventually they left it around.
I think I also heard Ronald Lamola saying that to be very sure that none of them were criminals, convicted criminals on the run in South Africa. They had to double check that part. So once they get to the USA, which will be sometime today, is there anything that South Africa gets involved in?
No, once they get to the US, no, they're out of our hands. They basically, I think, from what we were hearing, is that the destination does seem to be Washington Dulles Airport. And I think that is where they're going to be dropped off. So basically it's in the hands of the Americans. They are out of us. But I must say, one of the conditions of the permit, it was exactly what you've just said, the issue of vetting. Yeah. When the council approved the permit, or the chairperson, it was specific that they needed to be vetted so that you don't leave when in fact there's a criminal case pending or there's an investigation or person of interest who's going to leave. So hence the vetting was very, very important.
And I mean, overall, could you have been in a situation where their request to be effectively exited to the USA could have been denied at all from a South African perspective?
Look, when I don't know, I can't be in the shoes of the council, but in the case where it was denied, it would have meant that they needed to gazette the whole application so that whoever is objecting, they must then formally put their objection in writing. So it's a bit of a process. So I think it met all the requirements in terms of the approval, hence it wasn't really denied.
Okay.
And of course, the position of the government to say that won't stand in the way of anyone who wants to leave. I think the council also probably may have looked at that, but the council mustn't be influenced by outside factors. They just need to look at the application before them and make the decision.
All right. Point made. Colin Mtsibi, spokesperson for the Department of Transport. Appreciate you giving up your time on, I was going to say historic day, maybe not so much, that can't play it up, but certainly a significant day in the lives of the history of South Africa and the USA. Right. I'll get to your calls. I'll get your WhatsApp messages, texts. I'll get your one-worders. If you're also tweeting it out on Twitter, we'll do all of that right after this.
Dango, for the love of the game and Mzansi for sure.
Sekwenzenjani.
Soccer Zone has relocated to a new slot, 9 p.m. live every Monday on SABC 1. Mzansi Africa.
Fascinating goals.
The unbelievable saves.
From Africa Borwa to the entire African continent, to the Bundesliga and the Premier League.
High-level reviews of crucial match scenarios by the legendary Mr. Rev.
Top-class analysis, latest news about the beautiful game.
And Momish of the Week.
SABC Sport Football Weekend ends on Mondays at 9 p.m. on Soccer Zone.
Live on SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Marawai, why did you think a plastic bag and tape was a solid window replacement after that smash and grab? And why does it sound like a kite every time you hit Boma 60Ks? Marawai, why aren't you insured with Santam, the insurer that covers theft or attempted hijacking? Get your car covered online in just 2 minutes or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. T's and C's apply. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
We'll get comment from you about the doctors in a moment. Janus in Cape Town wants to talk about citizenship. Janus, go for it.
Hi, Ashraf. Thank you for taking my call. Ashraf, the double citizenship and triple citizenship, it was, I don't understand why it became problem now, and that the DDA had to take this case to the court and win, likely for us, because it never was like that. But I think it happened because the ANC is trying to not allow people who left or trying to leave or to let the country for the political reason to vote for whoever they're going to vote. And we know they're not going to vote for ANC because they left the country. They're not happy here. So that's why I think it's not more political thing. But my family, for instance, in New Zealand, people that take citizenship, I'm going to, and this Sunday I'm going to vote for new president in Poland. So I think I'm very happy what happened, that we're not going to force to give up the citizenship, because it will be difficult for many people of us.
Okay. Your line's becoming progressively worse, Janus. I'm going to leave it at that. I heard what you said earlier, but we're just not picking it up very, very clearly. My apology for that. In Plantline KZN, go for it. Hello. Yeah, how's it, man?
How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed.
Yeah.
Right, your point?
Sure. My point is, what is the employment security report of the doctors and nurses that will speculate how the recruitment and training procedure will proceed, as if Department of Health and should submit employment security report. Yes. And also nurses and doctors should be the people who stand for minister positions, because they are experienced on the work and they are well aware of the challenges of the health system. And same thing applies to doctors and teachers. Right. As if it's workers' rights, I think it's something we must educate each other.
Well, okay, you put it on the agenda. Thank you for that, Intlanta. Let's get to some of the voice notes now. We have many of those. Lots of people giving their one-worders, which just helps you to understand very quickly what is it that you feel. Here's one.
Hi, Ashraf Lester from PMB. Definitely opportunistic. The problem is, I think you're sacrificing your entire heritage, your entire culture for a free pass in another country. Yeah.
Well, some may say it's worth it. Leaving aside the dogma, it certainly is worth it. Let's get another call. Becky in Mpumalanga. Hello. What's your point, Becky?
Brother, how are you?
I'm very good indeed. Go for it.
I will never be good if Trump is being given an authority to dictate terms with Elon Musk in our country, the way they does and the way they wish. When you remember what the late Nelson Mandela said, he said it very openly and clean and clear. If there's a country that has caused atrocities in the whole world, it is America. Now, when you look at how the Republicans conduct themselves, you can look at the George W. Bush. You look at Trump himself. The question is, what did Saddam Hussein do? And what did Fidel Castro do? And the thing is, now you ask yourself the question, the definition of refugees. In what respect do you define those 45 families as refugees? It is an open secret that whites have killed black people, mistaken them to baboons. And vis-a-vis the murderers of the farms, we don't condone that and we say that it is fine. But you know what the leader of AWB has done to the people until they avenge themselves. I don't think it is politically correct to massage this situation and make as if everything is correct and everything is fine. Africans must come together. The dreams of the late Fidel Castro must be realized. We must have a United States of Africa.
All right. Well, you see, the must part could be a problem. You can suggest it. The must, many people may or may not agree with you, Becky. But you put it on the agenda too. Thanks for that. Let's see if we can go to Flagstaff. Now we got Sitembele on the line. Hi, Sitembele. Hello.
Yes, Ashraf.
Right. Okay, got that. Okay, go for it.
Oh, thumbs up to that guy, man. I don't know. He is doing so well. I wish we can all appreciate what the job that he's doing with his team, of course, because a week does not pass without us hearing that something big has happened in KwaZulu-Natal, whether it's a drug bust or it's some criminals killed or arrested. I think it's wonderful, honestly speaking. I know that there are a lot of people out there that do not like to hear that, but we cannot help it but to appreciate what Nhlathla Mkhwanazi and his team and KZN is doing. So I wish all other police in South Africa can just follow suit and do so wonderful. Thumbs up to that guy. Thumbs up to Kaizer Chiefs. Thumbs up to our teams in relay teams, and also thumbs up to Bafana. That is good. Thank you so much, Ashraf.
And no thumbs up to Donald Trump. Got that right. Thank you for that call. Right. Here's some further comment.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Hope you're well. This whole thing with the refugees and everything, the 49ers or the Amerikaners or whatever it is. When they talk about hate speech, the definition of hate speech is what you say is how it makes someone else feels. So now these refugees are feeling that their lives are in danger, or they're threatened, or they have no future. Their children are not going to get jobs because of the new Employment Equity Act and things like that. It's how they feel. And the government is not addressing that, but they're being ostracized for how they feel and their actions. So you know what? What country in the world actually says, yeah, the people are leaving as refugees because we are persecuting them? Mark from Cape Town.
Thanks for that, Mark. Well, look, Mark, you may have a point about one thing, that whether AfriForum is right or not about their position, and a lot of it has been exaggerated, you do want to have a situation where if communities feel ostracized and that they don't have a seat in the table, or they may not have a seat at the table any longer in the future, you do need to have those conversations with them. I would think at community level. So it would probably mean that government in this case must understand, that word empathy is such an important word. There's got to be empathy even if you don't agree with people. And let's see if they take the cue from that, right? Okay, let's get to the news headline. No, not news headlines, full-on news. Otherwise, Greg Close may say, sorry, but they have empathy for me. Here's Greg.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, gang killed in KZN shootout and a call to work together over conflict in Africa. Good day to you. 3 most wanted criminals from a notorious gang have been killed in a shootout with police at a house in Inanda, north of Durban. Police say they were part of a gang where 4 members were arrested a month ago in Cato Ridge. They were wanted for a number of violent crimes, including murder. The shooting follows the deaths of 5 suspected murderers in a shootout with police at the weekend in Hammersdale. Police spokesperson Robert Nechaunda.
We continued investigating. We found that there are 3 other guys who are outstanding. And our intelligence, together with the committee members who gave us information, they led us to this house where, as police approached, the suspects shot through the window to the police. Police returned fire, and during that gun battle, 3 suspects were shot and fatally wounded. They were found with a firearm each. And one of the firearms is what we believe we've been looking for quite some time, because it has got unique cartridges which we've been picking up from several magazines in Amaut.
Still in KZN, a bus driver has been shot dead in a robbery at Buffelsdraai, north of Durban. It's alleged the gunman had pretended to be passengers and robbed the driver as well as the passengers. Prem Balram is the spokesperson for a private security company.
Reaction Unit South Africa was called out to a shooting in Buffelsdraai in KZN this morning. We were informed of a shooting in progress and that 3 suspects had robbed a bus. Upon arrival, it was established that 3 armed men had robbed several passengers in a mobile bus and then shot the driver twice. The driver was expedited to hospital where he later passed on. A case of murder is being investigated and the suspects remain at large.
The N1 South before the Maritzburg off-ramp has been closed after a diesel spill. The Johannesburg Metro Police Department says traffic is backed up all the way to Beyers-Naudé Drive in Randburg. It says the diesel spill came from one of 2 trucks which collided. Metro Police spokesperson Gulani Fikl.
The estimated time for the scene to be cleared is not yet determined. Motorists are advised to be aware of the heavy traffic disruptions, avoid the N1 South before Maritzburg Road if possible, and consider using alternative routes such as 14th Avenue and Hendrik Potgieter Road.
The DA in Limpopo says it's collected a petition of more than 12,000 signatures from disgruntled residents in the Waterberg district complaining about poor service delivery in various municipalities. The petition was signed over the last 3 months in Bela Bela, Modimola Mokopong and Tabazimbi. The DA's Desiree van der Walt.
It's also a great opportunity to take a petition of this nature due to the history we've had in the specific 3 municipalities over the last 2-3 terms to Parliament whilst we have a new government there, where there's a minister who is very focused on his duty at the Koktal level. So we're going straight to Parliament and the NCOP because we're now in desperation. People aren't getting services and money is not spent what it's supposed to be spent on.
The Rwandan President Paul Kagame has called on all African countries to work together and deal with conflict and coups on the continent. He says the AU needs to do more. He was speaking at the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan in the Ivory Coast.
In terms of peace and security, and you look at the whole continent, you find many trouble spots, all kinds of efforts going on, back and forth, succeeding in some places, not succeeding in others, and continued efforts going on. Again, these are some of the areas because of the past and how we have handled our own affairs that we are all of a sudden reminded that we can't do all things by ourselves.
The top stories of the 3 most wanted criminals from a notorious gang have been killed in a shootout with police at a house in Nanda, north of Durban. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Gos.
In sports, Amajita aim for World Cup qualification tonight. Virat Kohli retires from Test cricket and Gov knocks out Raducanu out of Italian Open. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the R21 northbound in Kempton Park has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions towards the R23 Benoni exit, so expect delays. The N1 northbound in Centurion has a stationary vehicle after Samrand Road, and the N1 southbound in Roodepoort, a truck crash before Maritzburg exit. The roads closed, causing heavy delays. In KZN, the N3 eastbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, the N3 northbound in Moerefeer has a truck crash recovery underway near Headcote interchange, so expect delays, and the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg has a crash before New England Road. In Cape Town, Potsdam Road is closed through Central Dunoon due to protest action. The N1 inbound has a crash before Joostenburg exit, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Catch SAFTA award-winning cooking reality show The Tastemaster SA from Tuesday the 13th of May at 7:30. Watch as 10 talented contestants take on delicious challenges to impress celebrity chef Zola Nene along with special guest judges. Don't miss the season premiere, a heartfelt tribute to the incredible moms who inspire us all. That's Tuesday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. The Tastemaster SA, only on SABC2.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
We'll probably touch on an important health issue around settlements around listeriosis just now, right? But for now, let's get another take on the 49 South African Afrikaners or Amerikaners, as we talk about it. We should chat to Sophie Mokoena about that. Maybe as we just connect with her. Here's something I want to tell you that's so interesting. Let me see if I can find it. Regarding where South Africa is placed. Okay, so did you know there's been a survey put out fairly recently in terms of democracy and where South Africa is in terms of the world's perception of South Africa as a democratic country. Can you believe it that South Africa is ranked number 7 in the world as a democratically entrenched nation? Now, that is so important because in the light of what we just spoke about regarding the Afrikaners or Amerikaners, because that means all things considered, we may have problems, but they're not discriminatory, which is not what I'm saying about affirmative action, because that's more redress than actual discrimination. But that tells you something about how the world does actually see us, maybe outside of the USA, right? So that's the one thing. The other, I don't know if did you see the Bafana game against Malawi in that African Championship game at Loftus, and there were many supporters of the game who were part of a grouping, I think it's called Red Card Israel. It's part of a whole weekend of maybe 10 or 20 matches around the world, I stand to be corrected, who went to stadiums and then red carded. I think Glasgow Celtic did it more than most, right? Well, they did it in South Africa, maybe a few hundred people, and then they were arrested. Or maybe that's not no. First, they were asked to not use to remove their T-shirt that said, Red Card Israel, other red cards they were showing. And apparently about 4 or 5 of them have been arrested, and that hearing will now take place on the 19th of May. What do you make of that? I mean, it's the right, on the one hand, to express yourself and your political views, right? It could be Palestine today, but it could be anything else, right? On the one hand, and then when you go to a stadium, do you have that right to say whatever you want to say, or are those rights limited? That means does a stadium then say, sorry, at this stadium, we're not going to allow any other political slogans because that's what we're doing in the stadium? I don't quite know the whole story, and therefore I'm asking you that from a South African's perspective, you can have the expression of your opinion, and that's allowed as a country, but there are always limitations. Why I'm saying that, for example, if someone did, let's say at a game on the weekend, and if Afrikaners protested to say, we're all Afrikaners and we all agree with Trump at a Springbok rugby game, for example, would that be okay or not? I just wonder. We're learning all the time, aren't we? Okay, what we'll do is we'll get to Sophie Mokoena in just a few moments' time, but let's get onto another issue that is particularly important around some very important settlements. Let's see if we can do that right after this.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, this is the case you've probably been following for a long time, the issue of Tiger Brands and listeriosis. Now, the food producer Tiger Brands has offered now to compensate listeriosis victims, and this is a huge development considering the fact that this case, goodness, can you believe it? It dragged on since 2017. So more than 200 people died following the listeriosis outbreak. Richard Spoor Inc. played a pivotal role in assisting the affected families during this protracted legal process. And I thought we've chatted to them once or twice before. So now, anyway, there's a deal that's been put up. Let's find out what that is and what that really means with Amy Tushton, let me get that right, candidate attorney at Richard Spoor Inc. Amy, appreciate your time. You're on the National Pulse. Hi.
How are you?
Good. I'm very good indeed. So what is the offer on the table here? So clearly that, first things first, I take it Tiger Brands has acknowledged their role in these people dying, and therefore they've had to make an offer to settle, right?
Yes, well, that's how we understand it. The settlement offer is for a component of the class, which makes up about 300 persons who have a very specific kind of DNA testing that the NICD conducted on some samples, which renders what, in layman's terms, I would call a fingerprint match to Tiger Brands' Polokwane facility. But from the perspective of the class attorneys, we are reading it as broader than that. We are reading it as an admission of what we in effect deem to be liability.
Right. Are you still there?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. Can you
right.
hear me?
So in terms of the actual settlement, like what are they saying now?
They're saying that this is a without prejudice settlement offer. So from their perspective, this is an offer to settle without admission of liability for a component of the class. So it's for the damages of a certain number of persons.
Okay, so have you got a figure?
We have no figure as of yet. As you can imagine, this is just a first step. It's a settlement offer. It requires the development of a settlement mechanism and then further mediation, and then ultimately the settlement offer will need to be made in order of the court.
Okay, what would happen? I mean, so we have an offer, we don't have a figure. Who makes a recommendation to the families to accept or not?
So this will be the subject of consultation with the class representatives. The class representatives will have the ultimate sign-off on what the decision will be in terms of the settlement offer, obviously with the advice of the class attorneys.
Okay. What and in terms of where we are, in terms of the big lessons to learn from this, I mean, first of all, the fact that they are doing the compensation, that suggests that they acknowledge their role in this, and that's good. And they also acknowledge they need to pay some big amounts of money, and that's good. But are there other overlying, umbrella lessons to learn from all of this?
Yeah, I think, as the class attorneys, I can only stand with the lived experiences of the class members, and I think the long path for justice and the fact that this isn't even the finality of the matter, this is just another step, albeit a very welcome step. I think it speaks to broader needs for oversight in terms of corporate accountability, food, health and safety, and the socioeconomic rights to access to justice of all persons living in South Africa.
Okay, let's leave it at that for now. Let's see what finally happens when those numbers get thrown about and whether the recommendation is to accept or not. So much appreciate your time, I think, on a significant day regarding the families of the victims of listeriosis as per the settlement offer from Tiger Brands. Let's get now to Sophie Mokoena after this.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
We love rating things, our phones, our cars, but our health? Your health lets you do what you love with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding, longer life with regular health checks. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guardrisk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, Sophie Mokoena, we have not chatted in a while, but I've certainly been finding lots of your comments on many things, including in this case what's happened regarding the 49 South Africans now, Amerikaners maybe, as they land in the USA sometime today, right? So thanks for joining us on the National Pulse, Sophie.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you. I've been asking others to give one word that best encapsulates what your feelings are about what we've just seen develop or unfold over the last few months regarding these Afrikaner refugees. What is your one word?
I think misinformation can be dangerous because it can lead to a standoff between the two countries. Because after these allegations that there was a genocide in South Africa, the group that's being targeted, because when you talk genocide, it has to be a particular action to kill a particular group. And therefore, in this case, the white Afrikaners. And we know that there is no program to kill a particular group in South Africa, any group. whether looking at race, language, creed, or political persuasion. It's the issue of crime that's affecting everybody. And therefore, even the numbers, if you look at, if you were to go to a gravesite on Saturday and Sunday, I don't count during the week, you'll see that Africans in particular, there are more people that are being buried because of the number and being a majority in the country. And therefore, so that's the issue of misinformation that can be dangerous. That's how I can sum it.
All right. So having said that, information or misinformation, the bottom line, these refugees are actually going. It's happening right now, today, as you know, and it's not going to stop with the first 49. So it could be a few hundred. We don't know, right? What does this say in terms of now South Africa-USA relations? What's the big takeout from here?
I did ask the minister today about the pending visit of President Ramaphosa to Washington. He indicated that it is at an advanced stage. Few minutes ago, President Trump, defending his decision to grant white Afrikaners refugee status in the U.S., touched also on the fact that he is expecting the South African officials to be in Washington next week to engage him. And by extension, I think you would expect that it will be President Ramaphosa, because he did announce a few weeks ago after meeting President Zelensky that he will be traveling to Washington at some point in time, because he has been invited by President Trump to take forward or the discussions they had on a telephone. And therefore, I think President Trump has broke the news to say that it's next week. We don't know which day.
But certainly somebody's meeting Trump. Anyway. Yeah. Now, you spoke about Trump today defending his position regarding the refugees. What did he say today?
He says there's a genocide targeting white farmers in South Africa. That's basically it, and that is why he's doing this.
So he's repeated the same line, yeah.
Yes, in terms of the when you look at the executive order, it's clear it's white Afrikaner farmers that he is saying he is going to, or he has granted them refugee status. And people are now questioning the fact that when you talk about refugees, you are talking about people who fled their country because of war and persecution. And countries such as Sudan, Congo, Mexico, and others, you have refugees from many countries. And he has suspended that program to accept refugees from these countries. And where we know there's war, not even a misinformation or disinformation. So he doesn't want to respond to the fact that you are deporting Sudanese who fled Sudan where the war is raging, South Sudan, the DRC, you talk about Ukraine, the Middle East, but you are saying this group deserves to be granted refugee status.
Well, they've certainly jumped the queue. I mean, and you know, thanks in this case to Donald Trump's interpretation of
it's not
of
even
happening.
Jumping the queue. He has suspended a program to accept refugees.
Yeah,
You would recall he signed that executive order. He even signed an executive order to deport these people. Some of them are there because of the same reasons of being persecuted in their countries, because of wars, because of famine.
Okay. How can South Africa salvage this? Because, you know, you don't want to have enemies. You want to have allies, because that's the nature of, you know, multilateralism. But Ramaphosa again, I think, said today that he said, I've told Donald Trump that no, you are wrong, you are misinformed. But clearly, Trump's not listening to him. So how do we salvage this? And
I spoke to the officials at the embassy. They say, don't correct Trump. Go to Trump, put on the table the deal. And therefore, I don't think this issue of Afrikaners the South African government will win. I think the issue is how do you focus on trade relations and forget about this, because many countries around the world are fully aware that this is disinformation, including the UN Human Rights Commission in Geneva issued a statement that there's no genocide in South Africa, there's no persecution of a particular group in South Africa. So there's just nothing you can do. Just focus on people who understand. With America, focus on trade relations. Don't go there to go and correct him, because it will be ugly in that Oval Office. Just stay the course in terms of give and take.
Okay, because it's interesting you say that, because I think Lauren Landau, the professor, made the same comment to a degree, to say, just stop talking about this issue from a South African perspective. And, you know, your example about if you're going to correct them, you never know what Trump's going to do. And I'm looking at the example of the Ukraine president. Remember when he was there, just how ugly that was. So you're saying it's not in South Africa's interest then to even try and correct someone who possibly can't be corrected anyway?
South Africa has done so much. The president has done it. The former South African president, Thabo Mbeki, has done it. The business community, they've done the same. The Afrikaners, many white Afrikaners or white people in the country have dismissed these allegations. Just leave it and just focus on how do you rekindle the trade relation, or how do you reset the relations, and that's it, to avoid that hostile atmosphere in the Oval Office. Two, just focus on peace and security around the globe. You agree on Ukraine, there must be peace there. You agree there must be peace in the Middle East. Just focus on what you agree on, and perhaps the issue of trade relations.
Okay. What about, I mean, you talk about that type of focus. What about, so we've got 49 people now going, right? That's the first 49. In your conversations with others, do you have any idea just how many people have actually applied and been accepted for this refugee status to the USA?
I did send an email to the State Department last week, and I must say they were very quick to respond in Washington, because the embassy said, speak to the State Department. The State Department said they will not divulge the individuals, the names, and the information. But indeed, they are doing that. And they promise that maybe at some point in time, they will share information. But we are told it looks like it's going to be a grand reception with the Homeland Office, including the State Department. Unfortunately, President Trump, I think, is traveling to the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. He's also focused on pushing both President Zelensky and President Putin to meet in Turkey, and he would want that to happen while he's in the region.
Okay. What about, did you get clarity on this? There's been, you know, that these are refugees, right? So they've had to be seen to be persecuted in their home countries. I had a chat with Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi on Friday. In fact, we played it back again today from his previous position as the Minister of Home Affairs, right? And I mean, here's the thought to you. When they take up this refugee status, right, do they automatically have their South African citizenship revoked, which is different from dual citizenship? Because here they're actually acknowledging they are being persecuted. So what's the position?
According to international law, according to the refugee and migration and asylum seekers, which is part of the UN protocols and UN treaties, and international law, you lose your citizenship because you can't go back. So we don't know the laws of the United States of America. How are they going to navigate this? Because this is not the UN declaring this group as refugees. What we are used to, particularly in many cases, it's when the UN, through its refugee agency and human rights, is involved, and you have a tent where these people stay or a big area where they are together as refugees, as we know the refugee camps in Africa. There are many in East Africa, in Mozambique, in Central Africa, in North Africa.
It's. I mean, I think you're right about there's a completely different situation. But again, Aaron Motsoaledi said, Donald Trump does what Donald Trump does. He plays by his own rules as opposed to getting a ruling on this from the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, for example, or others like that. He literally does what he wants, right? Just as we wrap up, then, what's the one thing now you want to see going forward in the next few days?
I think there'll be more reaction from the US, from other citizens of the United States of America, as already there's a pushback to say why this specific group, why not people from Sudan, why not people from the DRC, why not people from the Central African Republic, why not people from Mozambique, Cabo Delgado, why not people from the Middle East, particularly in Palestine, why not the Ukrainians? He was even threatening of sending the Ukrainians back, and there we see him, as you can see in the screen, Donald Trump departs for Saudi Arabia, and therefore when they land, these 49 South Africans at 15 GMT, that is 1900 Central African time or South African time, he will be, almost out of the United States of America. He's just got into his Air Force One. He is flying to Saudi Arabia. He will also go to Qatar. He will go to United Arab Emirates. At the same time, he's pushing for Zelensky and Putin to meet in Turkey. He's going to the region and he wants magic.
So, let's see if he gets his magic on that side. Just finally, therefore, the one story we heard is when this group arrives, there'll be a press conference, unprecedented, at the airport, maybe on the tarmac, I'm not sure. Clearly, Trump's not going to be there, but do you know if there's like some official plan to welcome them, or will it just be, passengers off an airline into the terminal building and we wouldn't know any better?
One of the officials at the Homeland Office and also part of the State Department indicated on Friday or Saturday that there's going to be a reception and there will be officials there, I think, processing them. So we don't know who's going to be there, whether there will be a Secretary of State, the deputy, or perhaps Marco Rubio, or it's going to be Vice President Vance. We don't know. Okay. And as I pointed out when I spoke to the office of the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, the State Department, they said they wouldn't divulge. But the reports from America and that press briefing, I think it was on Saturday, on Friday, where this official spoke about this grand reception.
Okay, got that. Sophie McQueen, I appreciate your time. It's bound to be a busy evening for you. I'm pretty sure about that, as well as tomorrow. So we'll talk soon here on the National Pulse. Appreciate your time. Let's get to the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
In the headlines, the Gauteng provincial government says it's not yet in a position to confirm if its budget will be maintained or withdrawn ahead of a third attempt at tabling the national budget next week. The N1 South before the Maritzburg off-ramp in Johannesburg has been closed after a diesel spill, and the US ambassador to Israel has confirmed that a new mechanism for providing food and other aid inside Gaza through private companies is being prepared as Israel's blockade continues. A full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview, queuing on both routes towards Giluli's interchange. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown interchange, and the N1 southbound in Roodepoort has a truck crash reported before Maritzburg Road exit. The road's closed and that's causing heavy delays. In KZN, Chris Hani Road westbound queuing at the N2 highway. Underwood Road in Pinetown is closed between Leslie Drive and Lombard Street due to a crime scene, and the M7 westbound has a crash near the N2 highway. In Cape Town, Malibongwe Drive is protesting reported at Tadoon, so there's police on the scene and delays are possible. The N2 outbound has a stationary vehicle at Lisbeck Parkway and 35th Avenue southbound in Parow, queuing towards Owen Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
We've been winning a lot, hoping another win today, to me.
Absolutely. And former South African Football Association Technical Director Walter Steenbok says that Amajita qualifying for the Under-20 FIFA World Cup is very crucial for the future of South African football and the growth of this team. Amajita take on a Democratic Republic of Congo in the fourth and final quarterfinal at 9 p.m., 8 p.m. South African time in Ismailia tonight. And Steenbok says that this is the culmination of the good that has been done.
It can be better. It can be better. But you also remember last year, we also had a national methodology workshop where we tried to cement and also align how national teams must play, how to keep the identity and, of course, allow the tactical freedom and, of course, the technical ability of the players to come out, when they are playing, very, very slow, patient build-up, good decision-making. So these are the elements that we have tried to inculcate in the national playing philosophy. But, of course, they're not the only team in this tournament, who have really shown the true identity of their own country. There's also been several countries in this tournament, and now going into the quarterfinal, a lot about how teams express themselves. And, of course, teams that don't play with a lot of anxiety, will be the teams that, for me, will be able to progress in this tournament.
Well, Jose Rivero has thanked Orlando Pirates supporters for their passion and loyalty as he prepares or as he steps down as the head coach. This morning, Pirates released a statement saying that they have granted the Spaniard an early release as he has signed with a new club. He will serve as head coach for the last time tomorrow when the Buccaneers host Golden Arrows at Orlando Stadium. And under his leadership, the Soweto Giants lifted 3 MTN8 trophies, 2 Nedbank Cup titles, re-establishing themselves as a dominant force in South African football. And I guess the big question is who is going to step into his shoes. However, there are reports that he is set to become the highest paid coach on the continent.
And if he doesn't win in the first week, he's gone.
If he does go
that's
to
the expectations, yeah.
Yeah, if he does go to Al Ahly. But yeah, we are all waiting to see who is going to replace him down at Orlando Pirates, because now there's also reports that Benny McCarthy might just leave his post as a Kenyan head coach.
He just got there.
For a big job in South Africa.
And he just got there. And he's got a whole team. Munib Joseph, all those guys are together, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
We are yet to see. Elsewhere, Real Madrid boss Carlo Ancelotti will join Brazil at the end of the season and lead the Seleção until the 2026 World Cup. Ancelotti won 15 trophies across his 2 spells at Santiago Bernabeu, including a La Liga and Champions League double in 2024. Meanwhile, Real Madrid reportedly won Xabi Alonso in place as the new manager right in time for the start of next month's Club World Cup. The plan is for Alonso to travel to Madrid on the 1st of June to prepare the team for their first game on the 18th of June against Saudi side Al Hilal in Miami. Then in cricket, India great Virat Kohli retired from Test cricket today after playing 123 matches in his glorious 14-year Red Bull career. Kohli's retirement comes only days after fellow veteran Rohit Sharma stepped down from Test cricket. Kohli scored 9,230 runs, including 30 centuries and 31 half centuries at a test batting average of 46.85. He also led India in 68 test matches and was India's most successful captain with 40 test wins. In rugby, Ireland and Leinster captain Caelan Doris will be out of action for up to 6 months. This is following a shoulder surgery. The 27-year-old sustained the injury in Leicester's 37-34 Champions Cup semi-final defeat to Northampton on the 3rd of May. And then finally in tennis, Emma Raducanu has crashed out of the Italian Open in the last 16 at the hands of Coco Gauff, proved to losing 6-1 and 6-2 on the Rome clay to American Gauff. More on other sports a bit later on Top Sport, and I do understand that there are some fans from, not fans, man, Chiefs might just be on Top Sport this evening if
They might
are
just
very
be.
interested.
Okay. So two things. I mean, first of all, Virat Kohli, absolute genius.
A legend of
and certainly, besides the previous eras, I think he led the rise of India in the last 10 years. Just absolutely magnificent cricketer.
Yeah.
So just acknowledging him. Now, the other one is the Chiefs when they won the cup, right? So, you have all the players there, then you get the captain, and then the captain, Yusuf Mart, right? Scored the goal. He gets up there with the trophy, and then in 1 second, that assistant coach, I mean, you may know his name.
Cedric.
Not the main guy, right?
Cedric.
They literally got in front. So to the point, if you see the visuals, you see the trophy, and Yusuf Mart, the captain, is behind the trophy. You can't see his face. Where there's all the visuals, I want to take the captain and the team.
Yeah.
That's the focus part, right?
Of course.
Then when they have their free-for-all scrum, they can throw around the trophy. But these guys literally blocked them up like they were scrambling like it was free tickets or something like that.
Crazy.
I mean, did you get that?
I saw.
Oh, no, man.
Excitement. With that said, ke nna Tumi Nkgapele, Modimo ke yo.
Slipper Day is on the 30th of May, and I'm helping to make big dreams come true. When you support Slipper Day, you're helping Reach for a Dream bring smiles and joy to children facing tough illnesses. Do you want to help too? You can visit reachforadream.org.za to find out more about Slipper Day. Let's do it for the dreamers! This is an SABC-supported initiative.
You know, ever since I adopted positive energy-saving behaviors, the National Grid is thanking me. You should also adopt this lifestyle and your pocket will thank you too. Simply switch off non-essential appliances and lights when they're not in use. Reduce your geyser temperature to 60 degrees Celsius. Replace inefficient lights with LED lights. These are some of the ways you can use electricity wisely to help sustain our energy grid and contribute to a greener planet. Just like every rand counts, every kilowatt counts. Let's use electricity wisely. Eskom.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to all those numbers. The first working day of the week. Jimmy, what are you going to touch on? I mean, you've got a show coming up from 6 to 7, but you're saying what? New week, new drama. What is it?
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to the listeners. You've been covering some of the drama around the South African refugees that have boarded a flight to the United States. But in the early hours of the morning, before even Asian markets opened, we got a confirmation that there was some progress made, some substantial progress, in the words of the United States, in the China-United States trade negotiations. And then later on in the morning, around 9 o'clock, just before 10 a.m. this morning, we got news that there would be a further 90-day tariff suspension on the US-China specific tariffs, in addition to this tariff suspension that we've already got in place. So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be unpacking what is happening on the trade deal side of things in the world of tariffs, where we stand at the moment, what it all means. I can tell you now that markets have received that news in a very positive light. The gold price coming down quite significantly, but that's because the risk sentiment is now back, sort of shifted towards a risk on conversation. Equity markets doing well today, but we're going to dig into that. We're going to look at that from a tariff perspective, but I've also got Gary Boyson on markets with me to take a look at the market movements throughout the day. Then we've got conversations with the team at Calgro M3 on their full year numbers. They saw a slight revenue decline on slower production, but we're going to take a look at what else has been moving that business. And then we've got a conversation with Redefine Properties as well around their interim numbers for the first 6 months of their new financial year. Then we've got a conversation with the team at Standard Bank around what to look forward to from their perspective as it relates to the Nampo Harvest Day. Of course, we are in Nampo week. I will be traveling down to Nampo in Bothaville later in the week, but we're going to take a look at this and see what it all means and what to look forward to at this year's gathering. And then we wrap things up as we do on a Monday. This week, we are wrapping things up with a personal finance segment. We're going to take a look at what you need to know from a planning perspective before you begin or before you think about starting your side hustle to earn a little bit of extra income. So we're going to look at that with the team at Direct Access and see if we can find some unique nuggets of information to help you better plan your side hustle endeavors. Before we get to all of that, markets, as I said, have had a better day depending on which markets you're looking at. Equity markets, a good day. Financials, or rather currency markets, also relatively strong, but not as strong as what we saw last week. If we look at the international markets, all of the equity indices were were in the green, every single one of them. Biggest gainer in the Asian session was the Hang Seng in Hong Kong. That was up almost 3%. European markets, the biggest gainer there was the CAC 40 in France, up about 1.2%. The FTSE up 0.2%. Nasdaq up 3.5%. The S&P up 2.6%. Interestingly enough, before we got confirmation of the trade deal having been struck, we got comments from Donald Trump, the President of the United States, saying that now would be a good time to buy stocks because there's a major shift coming, and shortly after that we got confirmation of that. So markets continuing to dissect whether or not President Trump is front-running markets and how they are going to respond to that, and we're going to look at that as well and see what that means, and then we're also going to take a look at some of those other numbers that I mentioned earlier. But back to the updates today. Resources down almost 5%, and they kind of offset the 1.7% gains in financials and 1.9% gains in industrial stocks, and that was largely driven by that gold price. As I said, gold price down more than 4%, back to $3,240 a fine ounce. Brent crude still holding at $65.48 a barrel. Platinum and palladium coming off quite a bit. Palladium, the biggest loser between those two. Platinum around 978, almost 980-ish, but palladium back at 950. Towards the end of last week, both were closer to the $1,000 mark. If we look at currencies before we go, the rand, 18 rand 31 is what $1 will cost you. €1, 20 rand and 34 cents. £1 British pound, 24 rand and 17 cents. And $1 Australian, 11 rand and 67 cents. One Bitcoin, interestingly enough, is around 102,800, just under 103,000, or around 1.88 million rand. So Bitcoin price holding steady. We're going to look at some of these movements when we come back a little later on and try and unpack what lies ahead for this week. There's a couple of companies giving earnings, the likes of Tencent and Walmart. I want to take a look at that. But we'll be doing that at 6 o'clock. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Perfect. You have a great show, 6 to 7, followed by Sport with Michael Emerson. It's 7 to 8, in fact. That's the period. There's a whole lot of other current affairs shows that comes up after that, right? Okay, it means it's time for your calls. I want to engage you. I want to feel your pulse. What's moving the national pulse for you today?
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Save and win a car with Spar, for real! Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get 8 kg Spar Wolf dog food for $159.99 plus 400 megs free data on Spar Mobile, or 700 grams Spar pre-packed cheese for $89.99 plus 200 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 19 May while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
I see there's a tweet from Keir Starmer, at least the UK. He said, if you want to live in the UK, you should speak English. That's common sense. So we're raising English language requirements across every main immigration route. So if you want to emigrate to England, they're going to raise or the UK, they're going to raise the level of your knowledge of English. What does that mean? Afrikaners in the platteland got no chance? Just thinking about it. The other big news, Hamas confirming they've released the American Israeli-American hostage. It's Eden Alexander. That confirmation is there. We don't see visuals yet, but there's a huge crowd, like a welcoming home crowd waiting upon him. But they've confirmed that he has actually already been released. Right, let's get to some of your thoughts. Joey in Limpopo, talk about Trump. Hi, Joey. Yeah, Joey, go for it, Joey. What's your point?
I see.
I don't understand about this thing of refugee. There's no refugee in America there. If you check all those people going to America, they are former soldiers from 113 Battalion and M23 there in Messina, and most of them they are coming from Southwest Africa. They were fighting with SWAPO. Now those people that are landing there in America in order to fight to go to Ukraine to fight Russia. So that is the information that we got. That they are going there. I give you 4 months. If the war is continuing in between Ukraine and Russia,
right?
Most of those Afrikaners that are here, they will be arrested. If you can give me 4 of them that got farm, that left South Africa, you announce who was having farm here. All of them, they don't have farm here. They are not owning farm. White people who are African are owning farm. They are still here in South Africa. And the other thing, those people here, they are working with those people fighting for SWAPO. They are all over those farmers. If you go to Limpopo, Devil's Kloof, here in Mpumalanga, Standerton, there are those people, they call it Avamba.
Okay.
They are all over here. And almost 40% of those farmer soldiers, there are security in those farms.
Okay.
And at night, they are training here. Our country, one day, they are going to see a war here.
Oh.
And our intelligence, they are relaxing. They're doing nothing here. How can all those people that are all over here, and they are not working. They are working at night.
Okay,
That's the big problem.
Right. Lots of things, lots of points you made. Let's see if others would agree with you or they have a view based upon what you've just said. Thanks for that, Joey. From Joey to Jock in KZN. Also want to talk about refugees. Hi, Jock.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Go for it. What's your point?
Always good. I always wondered about why our country, our politicians actually the right decision or the hard decisions in terms of being ethically correct. And unfortunately, the journalist that was talking on your program a little bit earlier about I think Americanus or something in your column, which is a really, really rude term, and I'm not white by any chance, but it's there to pick on anybody. I find it so hypocritical of her being a journalist and saying, oh yeah, don't worry about the Afrikaners now, so we'll make a big issue about it, but let's just carry on doing trade and doing our exchanges of goods on it.
No, I think, but I think she's not saying that in that way. You have to hear what she's saying. There's a diplomatic. But listen, even as we talk now, Trump has already said, "You say what you want. This is a genocide. There's an attack on Afrikaners. I'm allowing them in my country." What she meant was, Sophie Mokoena, was that some things don't argue with Trump because you're not going to get your way with him. So focus on what you can get done, which is the trade agreements that also impact South Africa. That's it.
Well, okay, this is what I would put to her as a question. If we don't agree with the person, so we don't agree with apartheid, right? On which part of apartheid, on which leader should we base it on? So was F.W. de Klerk wrong? Was Vergoed wrong? Or were they all wrong?
But I'm not too sure what you mean. Like, what's your point?
What I mean is that Donald Trump is the president of the United States.
Yeah.
The people elected him. So it is general. It's not a general question or statement to say that the general request for Donald Trump to become president is what they empowered and who they empowered. So I find it a bit hypocritical to say let's do business with people of a majority of a country that we don't agree with. We've all seen bans against the companies in South Africa because they are run by Israelis or the Israeli people, and we can sit and accept that, or don't accept that, but we can accept by saying, okay, no, Donald Trump is wrong, he's saying there's a... And we take
but I tell you where you're confusing yourself here. Yes, there's a boycott from some people who believe they should stop dealing, not with people who are Jewish, but certainly some companies that have links to Israel and Zionism and have actively been part of supporting the IDF of Israel. That's the one part of it. But those decisions are made by lobby groups in this country or around the world, okay? It's not Sophie Mokoena saying that. On the other hand, for example, South Africa as doing business with the USA, it's not even Sophie doing it. It's on a government-to-government level. It's completely different.
I think, like I'm saying, sometimes if you don't boil it down to the basics, maybe what you're saying is you seeing it from your point of view and I see it from another point of view. All I'm saying is that his point of view is brought into question, or Donald Trump's point of view is always brought into question. And like we are having a civilized conversation now, if what Sophie McKenna said was, okay, just give in and let him accept it. If the Afrikaner people that had gone to his country had lied and said that this is the view that they've taken, which is not the truth, let's agree upon that. And then let's say if he's taking a bunch of liars, thieves, and people that are degenerates, if for the general lack of making them who they are as individuals, but we disagree with them, then who are we as South Africans to say, no, Donald Trump, don't take the bad people that don't make our country whole and let us not unite. These are the people that are not uniting our country. Let us rather send them off with a bon voyage, a nice gift, and send away, because at the end of the day, these are the people that we don't want in our country anyway.
Okay.
I think that it's a bit hypocritical for people to criticize on one thing and do the other. Like I said, we all have our points of view. I agree with yours in terms of what you said, and Sophie McKenna is entitled to hers as well.
Okay.
As we are all.
You have made you made your point and explained it, and I'm sure you're going to get people nodding in approval or saying, "Hey, no, Jock's wrong," but hey, we talk about it, and that's absolutely fine. Thanks for that, Jock. Right, to Marshall in Cape Town, not Marshalltown, just Marshall in Cape Town. Right, go for it, Marshall. Hi.
Hi, family. I trust that everyone is well.
Yeah, we good.
I think greetings to the SAFM listeners and to everyone in the studio also.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're doing is we are killing ourselves over someone who's not even worried about us. And we are pushing an agenda to uplift someone who's not even thinking about us in any way. I think what we must do as South Africa is to see how we could use our resources and whatever we have at our disposal and make the best of it. Because now we're going to worry about America, left, right, and center. In the meantime, we have our own problems here that we could work on and see how we could fix it. Because now we're not really doing any good for the future, and especially our young people, the youth of tomorrow. Okay. What are we saying to them?
Okay, I hear you. Look, it's complicated. I think on many issues, you have to look at the situation, even though, as you say, just leave them alone. It's not so much the 450 people who are going or the 200 people who are going. It's an attack on the country by the president of another country. And in the meantime, you also still want to retain bilateral agreements because it's important that we have trade with those countries. We're not strong enough financially at this point in time to say we won't deal with you. That's where it is. Marshall, you made your point. Thanks for that. Impo in Pretoria, it's your turn. What's your point? Okay, we'll get to Impo in a moment. There's lots of voice notes as well. Let me just pick up. So here's one saying, "Good morning, sir. Ashraf, what are you, in American time? I'm not too sure. I trust everyone is well." Commenting on the refugee status, it's unfortunate that a group of disgruntled citizens have to leave or threaten to leave before they get attention from the state. Can nothing more be done? Here's a question as a challenge to international law. The term refugee implies safety seeking from some impending danger. What are the South Africans seeking refuge from? From where I'm sitting, there are no mounting political tensions or provable threats of genocide. The GNU cannot afford to be seen as uncaring. Thank you for keeping up the good work. From Sibongile Zwane. Well, there we are. Okay, thanks for that, Sibongile. Impo in Pretoria. Also, let's talk about the refugees. Impo, hi.
Hello?
Yeah, you're live on the air, Impo. Go for it.
Yeah, you know what, I'm disappointed, very much disappointed, man, by the number of people who left. I thought it would be a lot of them because there's a noise. And then the only thing that makes me more disappointed about is why I didn't see the containers, the big containers, carrying all those statues and all these apartheid symbols. So I thought they are going to take anything that reminds us of them. We take everything and leave. Because I said I would see a very big container with the statue of Paul Kruger in it.
Okay, well, it's not going to happen, and you know that. Seriously, these are opportunists. These are opportunists who've taken advantage of how Trump is just interpreted this for whoever's told him that. And Trump has decided, as he often does, to say, let's pick some fights. And one of the fights he's picked is South Africa. And in many ways, he's also linked it not just to the farmers, but they've been very upfront about South Africa's position regarding Palestine. And that's come through. Okay, so yeah, got that. Okay, further comments. We've got more on the Afrikaners.
Ashraf was asking for a word for the Afrikaners who've left under Trump's grand plan. There's an excellent Afrikaans word for this. It's a very rude one. Soutpila. Soutpila. If you're not aware of what that is, look it up. It's very accurate.
All countries suddenly getting to the English Afrikaans dictionaries, maybe Googling it as well. It's like Soutpila. Okay, got that. Let's see what they come up with. Right, here's another.
Hi, good afternoon to you, Ashraf. It's Sky. Man, I'm just interested to know, Florence Nightingale was born 12th May. What year, please? What was the year she was born? Thank you.
Is that like a quiz question? Just Google it. Or we'll check up now. We'll get maybe Phineas to do it when he's got some time.
Hi, Ashraf. Fundo here from Cape Town. You know, these refugees, Afrikaners and all that, they are just spoiling our mood, man. They really spoiling our mood. We're supposed to be celebrating, the whole country is supposed to be celebrating the win of Kaizer Chiefs on Saturday, beating Pirates 2-1. But now here we're spending the air focusing on Afrikaners, youth, refugee, Donald Trump saga. Yeah, man. These are party spoilers, I tell you, Ashraf. But anyway, I'm a for life.
Maybe they support pirates, and that's all I can tell you. It's like, now we can't let Chiefs have their moment of fun, right? Or can we? Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf, Lester from PMB. Definitely opportunistic. The problem is, I think you're sacrificing your entire heritage, your entire culture for a free pass in another country. Yeah.
Okay, and here's another. Let me see about this one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. If people want to leave the country, they must do out of their own accord, out of their own decisions. No one is chasing them away. So if they want to leave the country and never come back, we don't care. No one cares. We will continue and move forward. We don't depend on them. There is nothing special about them. However, if they want to come back to the country, they will be welcomed all the time. Because I have a feeling that in a few years they will discover that they were more privileged in South Africa than in the US. Thank you, Ashraf.
Okay, and your turn, they will be welcomed. Conciliation, isn't it? Here's the last one I can play.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. Ashraf, Donald Trump's law of Donald Trump says white Afrikaner refugee. The American law itself doesn't have such a thing. Let's wait for the United States of Donald Trump for the next 3 years. Then the next president will talk about the US law.
So you think we're going to have a major change in 3 years' time and send them all packing again? You never know. Okay, look, that's the show. Tonight I think will be punctuated by the arrival of these South Afrikaners, now part of the USA, with US refugee status upon arrival. So that story will be covered, I'm sure, later on tonight, and we'll check it out. And then that release of the Israeli-American hostage, Eden Alexander, to be handed to the Red Cross in Gaza. That's confirmed. That's happened as we speak. But that's the show. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Love to engage with you as well. You can continue doing that by just tweeting using the hashtag The National Pulse, and then tag me, Ashraf Garda, as well as SFM Radio. Let's talk, even when we're off air. At 6 o'clock, just gone, in fact, here's the news with Greg.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Gauteng government speaks on the budget and gang members killed in KZN shootout. Good evening. The Gauteng provincial government says it's not yet in a position to confirm if its budget will be maintained or withdrawn ahead of a third attempt at tabling the national budget next week. The Gauteng MEC for Finance and Economic Development, Lebogang Maile, says all finance MECs and the finance minister are set to meet tomorrow.
To
tomorrow there's what is called the Budget Council. So the Minister of Finance and all MECs of Finance, we will be meeting tomorrow. And we will know whether they will cut any budgets on our part, or whether there was going to be any changes. And that will determine whether we leave this budget as is or we amend it to the legislature. But the legislature has already been informed by National that they should be ready in the event we have to withdraw and present a new budget.
3 most wanted criminals from a notorious gang have been killed in a shootout with police at a house at Inanda, north of Durban. Police say they were part of a gang where 4 members were arrested a month ago. They were wanted for a number of